WTF Forum is a decentralized broadcast network with no governing body of any kind and is produced and distributed by a loosely affiliated, ever-growing network of rogue, independent content creators. This forum does not, will not, and shall not have any one location, RSS feed, platform, or channel, but shall be shared and multiplied as nature dictates.
Welcome to the WTF Forum. The hosts do not give financial, legal, medical, or any kind of advice. Opinions are their own. This broadcast contains foul language and dangerous ideas. If you need a trigger warning, you are in the wrong place. Now enjoy the show.
If you hate the British Army, clap your hands. If you hate the British Army, hate the British Army, hate the British Army, clap your hands.
They come down from Bellamorphy when they come. They come down from Bellamorphy when they come. Sure, the children won the day when they all ran away. They were only little children, everyone. We don't want the British Army here to stay. We don't want the British Army here to stay. We don't want to be defended by an army that surrendered when the kids of Bellamorphy came to play.
What the fuck's going on, everybody? Welcome to the WTF Forum. As always, I am Mike the Polymath, Easy Peasy Podcast, and I think tonight we're going to talk about what makes people go mad. Okay, I hope that works for everybody. But in the meantime, I'm going to pass it over to my good friend, Stella Q.
Why, thank you, Mike the Polymath. This is right up my alley. This is Stella. I've got far too many Chocos Q, and I'm always glad to be here. Over to you, Bear.
Thanks, Stella. Hey guys, I'm Bear Snare. I'm happy to be here with y'all. It's been a little while, but I've been enjoying listening, and I'm happy to see Ashley with Ando.
That could go to either of you.
That could go to
Should
either.
I turn
of
on
you.
which
I
mic?
meant to go to
Which
Ashley,
mic are we
but
turning on?
Now they're going to fight over
Either
Michael.
of you go
Bloody
for
brilliant.
it. You can get in on one mic there.
So what's up? I'm Ando from Burn, Babylon, Burn in the Doom Kitchen, and I happen to be lucky enough to be spending my 34-hour reset with my good friend Ashley here.
Hey everybody, how's it going? Yes, thank you for having me. We're trying to, we did a really quick little setup here, so we're just trying to make it work. Yeah, but good to be back with y'all.
It's very good to see you, my friend.
Always good to see all of y'all.
I
Glad-
thought we'd
Yeah.
see you in dreadlocks.
Yeah. How was Jamaica?
It was wild. It was absolutely wild. I was telling Ando, the thing that's probably going to stick out to me the most is the driving, the roads. It was absolute mayhem. And I consider it a near-death experience. Like a 2-hour drive into rural Jamaica, there and back at part of our trip, and it was crazy. But it was good. It was very beautiful. The people were lovely. The food was good. So it was good.
Actually, would you describe it as perhaps like a Fury Road type situation?
I think that would be fair. Yes, that would be fair.
I'm just doing a little foreshadowing here.
Yes.
It's a little segue slither. Very nice.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that would be fair.
So the roads were pretty wild though, huh? Pretty mad.
It was crazy. There was no, this is how I put it. No lines, no signs, no lights. Once you're out of like the general little radius of the town, after that, it's rural AF. There are major potholes. There are small, narrow roads like weaving through the mountains. People, they will pass like, they'll just be an oncoming car, and they'll pass 2 cars. Like, they don't care. They do not give a fuck. People are riding their motorcycles without their helmets, which is totally fine. I believe in helmet laws, but they're just really risking their life.
Well, of course, you're going to get potholes in Jamaica, man.
Yes, it was it was really crazy. The pothole situation was insane. There were, as we got more rural, there are like just regular goats, just might have goats right on the road. People were walking like right on the side of the road. They drive on the left too, which was weird for me as well. And then they absolutely fly. So it was this whole conglomeration of, it was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. But
that reminds me very much of the traffic in Egypt. Very similar. So I can completely relate to what you're talking about there. It's like they do have a few traffic lights and a couple of signs, but no one gives any heed to them at all. The short time I was there, I must have seen 3 car accidents, and trying to cross the road in Cairo, my God, it's like you definitely take your life into your hands. That was fun. Certainly
What kind of vehicles were your main modes of transport?
They were vans. There was a lot of vans that the taxi drivers used, or like the people that were getting around. And our driver told us that a lot of the cars may be like second-hand cars coming from other countries because they don't really have enough money to buy new cars. And there was
Me too.
in my in my observation, there was a lot of poverty, like a lot of poverty there. A lot of shacks, a lot of trash in some places. Yeah.
You know, Ashley, you never cease to amaze me at your ability to read my mind and front load the topics that I wish to discuss with increasing ease. It's almost automatic. I don't understand. It just happens. I think we must have some sort of telepathic connection here.
We must, yeah.
Because I honestly want to talk about Mad Max for a number of reasons. Let's just say road rage has been ever more present in my personal life. I don't know about y'all, but the roads are getting a little crazy, a little mad, if you will. And it's funny because I actually was blessed with the opportunity to go on the Mad Max run in Indianapolis yesterday. This has been going on in Indy this was the 11th year. And it's where everybody that is involved shows up in costume with Mad Max motorcycles and Mad Max attitudes. And a lot of them wear like prop weapons and, plastic. One guy had like a plastic pipe wrench. Another guy had a big plastic hatchet, plastic chains, plastic bullets, bandoliers. These people went all out. Now, I'm going to just show you a little snippet. This is not terribly, what should I say, audio friendly, except there will be some music, and I'm pretty sure we'll be okay as far as copyright. This is like pretty obscure shit. But let me just show you a snippet of the Mad Max ride.
not super fun for the audio only people. We should maybe describe what's happening here.
Okay, so I'll pause for a moment because the music's pretty rad. So, if you can't see what we're looking at, just enjoy the tunes. But what we're looking at is a bunch of grown ass men and women with, like I said, costumes. And, this is almost like cosplay, but it's Mad Max. So
And they've got custom bikes that are a lot of fun.
Yes, that's kind of what we're looking at here. This is why you should watch the show live, first and foremost. But a lot of these bikes, they've built, specifically for this one day out of the year. In fact, one of these bikes was raffled off for free. The guy was like, yeah, I've got too many bikes. I'm gonna raffle off my Mad Max bike, and it's the best bike of the bunch. I'll point it out to you.
So, Mike, did you participate in this? Did you bring your motorcycle and
of course
do it? Awesome.
Of course.
I thought we were seeing something coming up that might indicate that.
Yep. And in fact, your boy won a major award.
Holy shit.
Okay.
Who's that handsome fella?
Sorry, I was muted. Yeah, that's my award, y'all. Look, here, I'll show you.
Hey, congratulations.
I love your junk, man.
I see a whole bunch of biceps and a pretty sweet trophy.
Fucking
It looks like it's pre-rusted.
It weighs literally like 60 fucking pounds.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh, man.
Hold on.
Rad.
Let me make it big.
So is it powder coated or is it actually just like...
No, it's just rusty as fuck, dude. And it's
Nice.
like sprockets and like axles and like fucking U joints, like, all welded up and shit. It's actually like, it's hard to even see how cool it is.
It's really cool.
It's fucking sick, dude. And it was basically just because I made it to the end.
You know what I'd like to see? I'd like to see those dumb Emmy Awards or whatever they're called, the Oscars and stuff. Like, make them 10 kilograms or something. Make them like have to really struggle to pick them up.
Seriously.
I'd
I
like
mean, you
to
heard
think,
me.
oh, my mother.
You heard me groan. It's like, God damn, that motherfucker is heavy. Yeah.
You made it to the
Awards.
end. What does that mean? Did you made it to the end of a race, or you made it to the end of like you hung out at the event until the very end, and they're like, "Oh, we'll give you an award."
Made it through sober.
It's a motorcycle run. I was mostly sober. We had a couple beers. We stopped at a couple places. We're motorcycle people. We're not fucking prudes. Anyways, no, like we started with 30 folks, but you know how it is. People have other plans and obligations, and some people don't have the stamina. We rode like 100 miles all through the city. We kind of like just went all over, and people were gawking, and like, you almost have to wonder if these people are like, holy shit, is the world falling apart? This was in Indianapolis, but they do a Mad Max run in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And I imagine they've got to do this shit in Australia. I mean, this is where it comes from, right?
Probably, and I should probably know about that because I used to be in the bicycle scene, but no. We were sort of lone bikers, really.
Bicycle or motorcycle?
Oh, motorbike. Bicycle. Did I say bicycle?
You
I'm
said
so sorry.
bicycle,
See, it's been a while. I'm so uncool
I'm a
now.
bicycle scene guy.
My
Yeah.
cool has rubbed off. But probably is my answer. Most likely.
Well, it kind of got my wheels turning, again, like I find inspiration in many things, but you start thinking about what is with this obsession with the post-apocalyptic landscape, right? Whether it's zombie movies or Mad Max or, Hunger Games or you name it,
I think I might have an answer to that.
Okay.
Because we live in a world of consumerism abundance, and that's the opposite. So that's the extreme that we need to go towards in a Hollywood sense?
I think that most of us have this. I think since the beginning of the 20th century, War of the Worlds, etc., everybody sort of felt like we had done everything and we are on the verge of the end of the world. And my entire life, I grew up in the 80s, and my entire life, the fiction was based on post-apocalyptic stuff. And if you turn on the TV today, what is it?
Post-apocalyptic.
Yeah.
I want to release that.
Post-apocalypse.
You need trademark that.
Dyslexic.
WTF post-apocalyptic.
That's
beautiful.
That's a great brand. It's a brand.
There's
That's our
it's a
merch.
brand right there.
Don't tell anyone.
Black and gray and like white lipsticks.
Someone
I wouldn't
get
be
us
surprised
the
if it-
.com right now.
I would not be surprised if it already exists at like Ulta, the makeup store. Honestly, there is a brand. There's a brand literally called Urban Decay.
Well, that's
And
It smells like dead possum.
Oh,
I-
dead
yeah.
possum and patchouli. It's a lovely combination.
Doc killed a bunny last night, y'all.
Oh,
Yeah,
Cool.
I was
That
actually
sucks for the
I was kind of proud.
I'm sure Doc was too.
I'm thinking that just because like I wouldn't expect Doc to. I mean, Doc's a sweet dog. He just, to me, doesn't seem like a killer. But
Oh, he's a straight cold-blooded killer, bro.
Oh, no kidding.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
It was
All
a
right.
baby bunny. Anyways, I don't mean to derail the conversation, but keeping you up to date with what's happening with the Doc. He's a cold-blooded killer, bro. Killed a baby bunny like nothing. It happened before I even knew it. It's like, damn, dude. And then I had the predicament of, do I let him eat it, or do I tell him to drop it? And I kind of let him parade around for a while. He was acting like he wanted to bury it, and I'm like, you know what, dude? It's late. I want to go to bed. Drop the bunny.
Drop the bunny. Move away from the bunny.
Move away from the bunny. But I don't know, man. It's like one step closer to Mad Max. I'm just saying, might as well let Doc get used to it.
Deadly Doc.
Maybe I should have eaten the bunny. No, but I'm just being silly here. But people
freezer.
are semi like obsessed with this notion that the world's falling apart, right? For maybe valid reasons, maybe invalid reasons, a combination of both.
I tend to
don't
think
know.
about it a bunch.
Yeah.
It's like that whole guys think about the Roman Empire thing. Like the reason is because of the collapse, and we see it going on around us. And like I've seen the Tower of Babel like as the American Empire for like 10, 12 years, 15 years now. Like just expecting it any minute for all that time. And as it goes on, I realize that, it's not necessarily going to happen tomorrow, but it is happening around us anyway. And as far as what makes people go mad, I was thinking, since it's still the beginning of the show and we can sort of introduce like ideas, I've been thinking about having a conversation on false gods. And I might have this a few times with different people because I think there's some interesting things to explore. But I think what Stella said with materialism, that is a lot of what our false gods are. Obviously money can be, but we could go down some pretty interesting rabbit holes of what gods do we actually worship.
The false idols,
Yeah.
etc. Yes, it would be a very big conversation. I believe.
I'm into it. Maybe to some extent we worship fiction and story, like I like using like a movie, like I'm about to do with Mad Max, and making assertions based on the themes of the movie as to how it reflects our own sort of collective psyche, right? And where we're at as a people. But go ahead, Ando.
Matt Erickson from King Pill, he said one time, or he's probably said multiple times, that everybody has a God-shaped hole and they're going to fill it with something. And that's where you get this notion of false gods, I believe, is that it's interesting. Have y'all watched the series American Gods before or read the books? Oh, it's super
9.
interesting. Bear,
No,
I
but
bet Bear
I'm
has.
definitely familiar with Matt Erickson. And so, yeah, that might be why I'm thinking about this.
Well, the and in that show, that's from Neil Gaiman, American Gods, and so it's about all of the gods from the old worlds coming to America, and the new gods. So there's new gods that are media, the world, etc. But then there's the old gods. There's like Odin and Thor, and there's about 500 different Jesuses through the series. Um, it's interesting for sure. It's obviously blasphemous to an extent, but it's also interesting and worth taking a look at some point if you're into thoughts like that.
I've listened to a couple of his books, but not those ones. And I'm also listening to a Terry Pratchett book right now, where similarly there's a lot of I'm listening to Small Gods, which is it's similarly got some blasphemous stuff, but also brings some interesting thoughts.
So,
Oh.
I didn't mean for it to skip. But
Meow.
this guy. Oh, Stella likes.
I like the
Stella's-
bad boys.
She likes the post-apocalyptic warlord look. Check that
Hey, Endo,
out.
is that
She's from
Thomas?
Australia, yeah.
Actually, it was about the bike.
Well, so this was the bike that was raffled off. And it was the coolest thing. So, like I said, not everybody made it to the end of the ride. We started with 30 and we ended up with 10. And almost everybody that bowed out along the way gave their raffle tickets to one guy, an older guy whose bike had just broken down. So it's like, let's give him the bike, right? Now, me, I don't know these people. I'm like, I'm holding my ticket. I'm riding this sumbitch to the end. If I win, and maybe I would have, part of me would have said, fuck it. I don't need that bike. Here you go, man. But like, I wanted to see if I would win. Then again, what a predicament. I kind of just wanted the bike because it was sick. It was fucking sick. And who
You
doesn't
could just
want
have
a
it for a
free-
while, maybe, and then
Yeah, who doesn't want a free motorcycle, So, but, yeah, no, they gave me that trophy just as like, your bike's cool. It basically is a trophy for the bike. It says
Nice.
war rig.
So that
Yeah.
60-pound trophy is a participation trophy?
Well, they only had a few trophies, and I managed to snag one of them.
Nice.
But yeah, I don't know. I was shocked actually because there were cooler bikes, but it was kind of a tight community that I was introducing myself to. They were really welcoming, really cool. Everybody looks like they're ready to murder an entire village, but they're like actually super sweet. So it was this really funny. It was like a really funny juxtaposition, like
that's so often the case with bikers. Like they look like
Yeah.
they're about to rip you into pieces, but then
Yeah.
they, they'll offer you a cup of coffee or something. It's just most of them are sweethearts. So what was so cool about your bike? What is your bike? I'm sorry if I missed it. If you
well, I could show you. Maybe I will in a second here, but it's like a dirt. It's an adventure bike.
What's the brand? Like the model?
Kawasaki KLR.
KLR, right? Okay.
650. Yeah.
Mhm. Oh,
They're
okay,
actually
nice.
they're very popular all over the world. It's kind of a Swiss Army knife of bikes, but
Yep.
it looks very military and
Like the KTM.
I didn't have any skulls or anything hanging off of it though. That's why I was like, I don't deserve this. But they were just like, nah, dude, like, we're glad you came out, here you go.
The skulls will come. The skulls will come.
Yeah. I'm like, I'm definitely dressing up next year.
We better give the trophy to the new guy or he won't turn up next year.
Pretty much. But either way, I'm calling it a major award.
Yes, I was wondering if you're going to be putting it up in your window.
Oh yeah, for the whole neighborhood, just like the leg lamp.
Yours
Yep.
looks a little less fragile.
It's not at all fragile. In
I
fact,
was
you
going to ask.
could kill 7 people just by throwing this into a crowded room.
I was going to ask if the box that it came in said fragile.
No, it didn't come in a box. In fact, I had to strap it onto my motorcycle, and I thought it might break something. But
Almost as heavy as those chains that were strapped to the other motorcycle that you didn't win. Assuming you didn't win it.
Correct.
but,
No, I did not. No, it was actually really beautiful. The old man won it fair and square, and he had a smile a mile wide. You know, it was too cool, man. Like, it was a really cool little niche community. I actually did take my microphone. I haven't listened, so I don't know if it's any good, but there will be a little like easy peasy special on Mad Max 2024, you know, Indianapolis. But I bring it up because it was so bizarre, right? Like, we're cruising through town and most people are like laughing and smiling and waving and stuff because we look so crazy. And other people were really turned off and like upset, like clearly upset. And it was so funny to watch. But like I said, like, this, just the aesthetic of the post-apocalyptic brings out these two reactions in my limited experience.
I know what you mean by the that feeling of like being in a huge group of people, like especially on bikes. We used to do the toy run quite often, which was a whole bunch of, I don't know, you guys probably do that too, do you? The toy runs where a whole bunch of bikers get together and, you know, they've got all like hundreds of bikes, and they've all got things like great big huge teddy bears, pillions, and strapped to handlebars and toys and stuff. And, you know, we all go from wherever, point A to point B, but it usually involves 2 or 3 hours, and stop-offs along the way, of course. But then when we come in, you know, you're coming into the big town and everybody's lined up to see this roar. It's like a thunderstorm arriving, I guess. It must be amazing from the other side, but it's amazing from the back of the bike too. But yeah, just cruising in, and everyone, you know, all these kids, and they're all lined up. Everyone's got their hand out, and you just go slap, 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 slap. You know, you just hold your hand out and slap the crowd as you're going through. It's such a great feeling, you know. It's just a real unity and a real, we're all in this together. But before, you know, it's way pre 2020. You know, just we're all in this life together, and here we are connecting, taking a bunch of toys to kids, all these wild looking characters. You know, not all of them, but yeah.
So it's about bringing
feeling.
the toys to the kids on motorcycles?
Yeah, like
Oh, wow. I don't
needy
know if we
children.
do have that.
Oh, okay.
Oh, there's tons of charity rides.
There would be,
Yeah,
all
yeah,
different
there
themes,
certainly
I'm
are,
sure.
for sure. I just haven't heard of that specific one.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, I don't know if they even still do that because, you know, COVID. I don't know whether there's some sort of restrictions now about secondhand toys. Or I think they actually had to be new toys, to be quite honest. I can't quite remember. It's a long time ago now, but I'm pretty sure they all had to be new. But either way,
Blah,
it
blah,
was
blah,
a
bullshit,
great
bullshit,
experience.
bullshit.
Yeah, blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. Madness.
No, that's cool. I actually did my first organized ride, motorcycle ride, that is, last year. It was,
Yeah, they're fun, man.
it was cool. Yeah, it was
Right.
cool. It wasn't super long. It wasn't 100 miles like you, Mike. It was
Well, I exaggerated a little. It was like 80 miles. But
okay. Yeah,
but,
still,
you know.
we did more like, we rode around the neighborhood a bunch, did some loops. It was more of like a memorial funeral ride, actually, and that was
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah.
It was a neat way to. It was a good send off.
Right. Yeah, I say 100 because that's what I clocked on my bike between getting there and getting home at the end, right? And
That's pretty
Right.
normal.
my sunburn can attest.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyways, I do want to carry on with this concept of madness, right? Like Mad Max. The storyline, essentially, for those that are not familiar, it's about a cop who loses his mind in a you know, he lives in an insane world, and he had a tenuous grasp on sanity, but it cracks, right?
I forget that he was a cop.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But before we go into Mad Max, I want to show you another good example of just how quickly things can go apocalyptic.
Woodstock 99! This is Woodstock 99, baby! Woo! We're in Rome, New York, not far from the original Woodstock site. But of course, things are a little different in 1999 than they were in 1969.
In July 1999, nearly 500,000 music fans descended on the small town of Rome in upstate New York to commemorate the 30th anniversary of Woodstock. Among the dozens of performers over the 3-day festival were Rage Against the Machine, Korn, and Limp Bizkit.
What are your memories of that show, and what do you think it did for this movement of heavy music?
Well, they were really pushing this movement hard. It was like this breakout metal festival with a few other artists sprinkled in. I remember getting there and just going, oh my God, look at this place. This is Woodstock. What an honor. How amazing. I mean, it was definitely the highlight of rap metal music.
For us too, it was crazy. I think it was the greatest show we ever played and are ever going to play. It was just amazing to play in front of 400,000 plus people and them all get it and be right there with us and feel what we were doing. It was amazing to see people jump into music, and because there's so many people, seeing how the sound travels, seeing the waves of people jumping, it was just ridiculous.
Woodstock 99 was unforgettable. That was a pretty big moment. That was the biggest moment in our career because it was so intense. Never done anything like that before. Still haven't.
We rocked that place that first night, and everybody had fun. The second night, Limp Bizkit fucked it up for everybody. They really did.
You want the worst? Well, you got the worst. The one, the only, Limp Bizkit!
I mean, it was wildfire. There was people everywhere. And when we finally went up to play, it was like middle of the day. And we had like the best slot to where the energy would be super high. So we just got up and we played our show.
We walked on stage and it was that wave of people bouncing as far as you could see, hundreds of thousands of people. And it was the most amazing adrenaline pumping moment that I've ever experienced. And I was so amped and ready to rock, and we just did what we do. But I guess things started to go bad during, our song break stuff. It is what it is. It was just me doing my thing, because during our performance, I saw people surfing on plywood.
That's some tight shit right there. The crowd surfing on the plywood.
I was like, that's fucking amazing. How cool is that? I'm going to go do it. So I jump down off the stage and I go out in the crowd and I'm telling them to bring the plywood over here, and they're surfing it over, and I get up on it and I'm just start rocking on the plywood. I'm partying with you guys. I want to be out here in the crowd with you. This is amazing. I had no idea there was anything negative going on at all.
You got job problems. You got a problem with me. You got a problem with yourself. It's time to take all that negative energy and put it the fuck out.
I don't think they understood that I meant, okay, let's get rid of all that negativity so we can bring positive in. That means start jumping, jumping and singing. It doesn't mean start raping and burning the place down. That's definitely not what I meant.
All right, pausing, because I'm sure probably most of you are aware of this story. This video is a pretty good synopsis, though, for our listeners who may or may not know what happened at Woodstock 99, because this was a true case study in madness. And all it takes is a little bit of heat and a little bit of rock and roll and a whole lot of booze and drugs. He's like, this was our best show ever. I believe it. But at a certain point, you got to recognize when.
Wait, it was
when
Korn
people are
that said
going.
it was the best show ever. Limp Bizkit didn't say that.
Actually, I think Fred Durst, he was saying it was like they were having the time of their lives, right? This was the
Korn.
biggest. Well, it was both, man. I'm saying it was both. Fred Durst said something similar. Because the energy was so up, but nobody expected it to go sideways. But like, this is where the break in the psyche happens, right? These high energy moments where it's too damn hot out, but you're having too damn much fun to stop. I had a moment last night, right after the ride. I went and I had a couple beers, and I'm sitting out with some people I know, and this pickup truck, this janky meth-fueled pickup truck, comes whipping up the alley and bangs a right. And I saw it. I knew it was going to happen before it did. I saw all these 2x4s just thrown into the back of the truck, no straps, nothing. And they're hanging all the way out. They're like 12 or 16 foot boards.
Free 2x4s.
And they fucking whip out of the alleyway, and all the boards spill onto the street, and they jump out and they're frantically throwing them in. And you could take one look at them and realize they stole all that lumber.
Oh, shit.
And so me being me, because I hate people who steal shit that other people have already paid for, I said, "Where'd you get the lumber?" And they go, "What?" And I go, "Where did you get the lumber?" And they're like, "Lowe's." And I said, "Okay, there's not a Lowe's for 10 miles. And I wanted to just call them liars and like get involved and be like, I almost wanted to call the cops because I fucking hate thieves. But I decided instead of engaging anymore, I made my point. I laughed when they said Lowe's. And basically I chose to disengage because I don't want to toe into madness with these crazy meth addicted thieves. What's the point? It's not good for me. It's not good for any of my friends. It's not good for anybody. Let them go,
Yeah, you definitely don't want to buy a bullet for a lump of wood.
Exactly. But this is where me and Fred Durst differ. Instead of going into the crowd and jumping on the plywood, I don't know. I guess I don't know. I'm not a rock star, but like there's a point where you choose to engage with the madness,
So, Mike, you've caught me a little bit by surprise because these are the type of bands I was listening to in 1999. And I probably heard about this, but didn't see the footage and understand what was actually going on. Like I probably heard the whitewashed radio version of it or whatever, But yeah, like where'd they get all the plywood?
You're about to find out, motherfucker.
Okay.
So there's actually a really good documentary on Netflix. It's called Trainwreck, and it's all about the Woodstock 99 festival, which was a train wreck. But
I'm just gonna say it reminds me of Brick Fairies.
I'm not familiar.
In the George Floyd riots, the Brick Fairies who would drop pallets of bricks in convenient places, and then those bricks would find their way through store windows.
Yeah.
Some of them were cops too, I believe.
Imagine that.
I do remember that. Yes, the surveillance footage of some cops. You remember that, Ashley? I can see you nodding your head. Yeah, and Nando. Yep. I'm not mad.
Well, I will say they found the plywood on site, and it'll explain. But here you go.
I remember getting off the stage and having some policemen with my manager come around me and say, "Fred, I think you kind of incited a riot." They started ripping down buildings and the scaffolding, and that's the plywood you were surfing on. That wasn't from walkways going to the restroom. They were tearing down things, and there's people getting hurt. And I go, I didn't see any of that. Everybody I saw was having an amazing time.
Fred with his like, come on, let's break stuff. That song, him doing that just sent it over the top. And that's when all that stuff happened. There's people hurt. People got beat up, hit, all this craziness. He instigated the whole damn thing. I was right there watching it.
It wasn't a fun Woodstock type love fest. It really turned violent. It turned ugly. It was really a dark moment in music. And instead of stopping the show, Fred Durst stoked the flames.
3 days of music, peace, and love ended with arson and rioting early today at Woodstock 99.
Whatever the reasons, concert goers began destroying property, starting fires and rioting.
Scattered bonfires raged out of control for several hours. Vending stalls were looted and light towers toppled.
But was Woodstock 99's fiery end enough to shroud the event in regret?
All I can say is that when we were on stage, our experience was it was the greatest concert of all time. And I had no idea that the finger would be pointed at me as a guy starting a riot. But I guess, to this day, it's going to be something that Limp Bizkit fucked up.
This music kind of started with the idea of making powerful music that had a message that was about integrity and unity and this kind of solidarity between band and crowd. And it became like, a bunch of thugs raping women in the pit and then burning the festival to the ground. We popularized this genre, which now has just totally run amok. I just thought, man, this is like, what have we done?
When I think of Woodstock, I think of that incident with Limp Bizkit. The stuff that happened there was kind of like the way Altamont was, like you had the original Woodstock being this amazing music festival, and Altamont being the point where, like, the 60s culture jumped the shark. Maybe that was the turning point where things had gotten out of hand.
That music became excess and spectacle and disrespect to audience and peers in a way that you saw at the most awful heights of the hair metal bands.
This character, Fred Durst thing, this monster that was created, it sort of backfired on me. There was always negativity thrown at Limp Bizkit. Nobody really wanted us here in the first place. Nobody really wanted rap in the first place, and nobody really wanted metal in the normal world. So rap metal, oh shit. Now the metal guys don't want it, and the rappers don't want the metal. So I just think that I'm just that guy, I guess. Yeah, maybe I'm that guy.
Despite the fallout and backlash after Woodstock 99, the nu metal movement didn't die, and in fact, it continued to grow. And it was so pervasive that even one of metal's biggest bands embraced the nu metal sound.
Okay. Yeah, so I actually hung out with Jared the Permy guy today, and he's a huge metalhead. Loves it. We shot a whole bunch of rounds today. It was good fun. Everything from 22 to 30-06 to 5.56, you name it. We shot it. 9mm, 38 special. We had a ball. We had a real good time. But I, believe it or not, I've had a big weekend, y'all. It's been rock and roll, motorcycles, and guns in that order. Okay, I went to a Nirvana cover band on Friday. Saturday was the Mad Max run. Sunday was shooting guns. It was a great weekend.
You look like you're sitting a little bit taller with a really big smile on your face. So yeah, I can dig that.
But I watched a mosh pit. It was a very mild mosh pit at the Nirvana show. And I had one friend in particular who just loves getting into the mosh pit. I've gone to a show with Jared the Permy guy. He loves getting into the mosh pit. And a mosh pit is a really good example of that edge. You're towing the edge of madness. Gets hurt. But the whole point is to kind of feel something, to feel crazy, to feel alive, to feel a little bit of pain, to get pushed around, to push someone around. Because it's better than the mundane, That's why we fantasize, I think, about these worlds, these post-apocalyptic worlds. I don't know. Maybe I'm reaching, but
Yeah, it's a whole world I don't really understand fully. It's sort of a little bit like as appealing as falling out of a plane or climbing a huge mountain to me. So, yep. Pass on. Ashley, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I think it's a really interesting concept. It's not necessarily something that I thought very much about. I think that this concert is a really good case study, as you were saying, but does it seem like Durst was intentionally trying to stoke a riot from what he said? I don't know.
Hell no. So
it reminds me of January 6th.
There were many other factors extenuating.
The red hat.
Yeah.
And wasn't it sort of about the song choice at that particular time that really kind of stood through fuel on the fire?
Yeah, so there is something in the lyrics where it's a bit more like, putting fuel on the fire.
Yeah, the song is called Break Stuff.
Right. Well, there you go. I mean, that says it all, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And I can imagine, I don't know the song, but it's the power of music. Is where
I got an idea for Ashley because she's great at this. Pull up the lyrics for Break Stuff and read us like the first verse.
Gladly. I'm on it.
Yes, because the lyrics are very inciting, right? but there were many things about this festival that were very flawed from the start. It was at an abandoned Air Force
Hangar.
like runway. There was a big hangar. It was like the rave hangar, but the two main stages were on the tarmac.
Oh wow.
And it was 100-some degrees, and water was $4 a bottle, and this was in $1999, so that would be what, $10 a bottle now, you know?
I wonder
And
if you're allowed to bring your own.
nope.
I mean, a beer at one of those events is like $20 now.
Uh-huh.
In a plastic cup.
I think a water probably is $10 if a beer is 20.
Also, the two stages were a mile apart. No. I think it was actually like 2 miles apart.
That's crazy.
That'd have to be.
People were dehydrated and pissed off, and the music only served to fuel the flames, you know, like.
Yeah, the perfect recipe, wasn't it? It
Yeah.
sounds very operative, and also the fact that, you
Almost.
know, they
Yeah.
called it Woodstock, but it wasn't in the same place, obviously.
Nope.
So, you know, they've sort of traded on something that was brilliant, basically. You know, in a lot of ways it sucked, but it was basically brilliant.
Well,
It was
but
a fantastic event either way.
Even the original Woodstock, though, was kind of weaponized to discredit the hippies and the
Oh, absolutely.
anti-war movement, and to paint them all as, like, you know, heathens and whatnot.
Absolutely, but as a participant, it would have been awesome, you know.
It would have been.
You know, in 1969, that there was this pandemic going around at the same time as they had it, but they still had it. And what did all the boomers do to us whenever some stupid virus reared its ugly head? They were mask up and, you know, you're gonna kill me, get away from me. And fucking boomers really fucked us over on that shit.
I don't disagree, Ando. I don't know. It's all madness.
But anyway, the point being that they've taken something good like Woodstock and just inverted it, and it sounds very operative. The whole thing sounds like a complete setup, obviously.
I've been to a music festival where things went wrong and it didn't break out in riots. I was at a Mayhem Fest in 2013. Five Finger Death Punch was playing. Saw one of my favorite bands, Mastodon, briefly, because mostly I spent the time in line for food. But oh well. But yeah, so someone out on the road hit a power line or a phone pole and took out the power to the festival. So the concert was down for like 2 hours, and we eventually left. And as we were on our way, like in line, all packed up in the car on our way out, the power came back on and they got back to playing and stuff. But yeah, there was a big dead period there where Five Finger Death Punch got interrupted and there was nothing going on. And a lot of people just decided to leave. Then that was what we were doing, because we were all sunburned already from spending the whole day there.
I've seen these festivals from all sides, you know, because I used to be a radio guy, so I would end up backstage quite often. Did the pedicab thing, so I was out in the parking lot and saw things from that side. I just went to plenty of stuff and have seen it from every aspect. People die at every single festival. There's ODs, there's all kinds of crazy stuff. There's, you know, people that it just, even at regular concerts, you don't hear about it because it's not something that they want to get out. And it makes me wonder if in some ways that a lot of concerts / festivals are maybe some sort of weird sacrifice ritual in the long run.
Well, you guys may or may not have heard of this one. This was pretty, yeah.
Oh, sorry to interrupt. I did find those lyrics if you want me to read those real quick.
Please do. Please.
Okay, here we go. It's just one of those days when you don't want to wake up. Everything is fucked. Everybody sucks. You don't really know why, but you want to justify ripping someone's head off. No human contact, and if you interact, your life is on contract. Your best bet is to stay away, motherfucker. It's just one of those days. It's all about the he says, she says bullshit. I think you better quit letting shit slip, or you'll be leaving with a fat lip. It's all about the he says, she says bullshit. I think you better quit talking that shit. It's just one of those days, feeling like a freight train. First one to complain, leaves with a blood stain. Damn right, I'm a maniac. You better watch your back, because I'm fucking up your program. And if you're stuck up, you're just locked up. Next in line to get fucked up. Your best bet is to stay away, motherfucker. It's just one of those days. Then the chorus, the bridge, I feel like shit. My suggestion is to keep your distance, because right now I'm dangerous. We've all felt like shit and been treated like shit. All those motherfuckers that want to step up, I hope you know I pack a chainsaw. I'll skin your ass raw. And if my day keeps going this way, I just might break something tonight. Yeah. So I think that's it's a good idea, or a good idea of the song. It's not the whole thing, but you get the point.
Slightly incendiary, if you will.
Man, it's funny. I recognize the song with the first line, and yet I had no idea it had all that in it.
Yeah, but I bet you could probably sort of sing along with it, because the thing is, a lot of things with lyrics is they go in subliminally. And even though you might not think about, I mean, how many times have you heard a song that you've been familiar with, a lot of your life, and then you suddenly find out what one of the lines are, which is nothing like what you thought it was. And you just don't really think about it. I mean, that's something that's a bit of a heartbreak, actually, for lyricists such as myself.
There's a bathroom on the right.
Yeah.
Don't eat the brown acid, y'all.
Excuse me while I kiss this guy. That kind of thing. So there's some good stuff out there. But
I definitely hear that Jimi Hendrix one every time.
It's hard not to. Once you hear it, you can't go back.
Well, the whole. I was just going to comment on the idea of like concerts being some form of a ritual, right? It is almost a form of like worship.
Yeah. Like I said, people have that they fill in things with something else.
Hey, Ashley,
and
mute your mic.
There you go.
It's okay. But yeah, they fill it in with something else, and yeah, the concert, and it's this huge harvest of energy. There's just energy and energy and energy, and then this big crazy harvest.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The other thing I was going to say is, how about that motherfucker from Rage Against the Machine throwing Fred Durst under the bus? I'm not a fan of either band. I liked it back in the day, but at this point, fuck all these guys. But throwing him under the bus the way that he did, he's like, oh, the Fred Durst incited a riot. It's all you motherfuckers were in the market of making music like that. Every single person on the bill was in the market for making music like that. And because it happened to him and everybody being a fucking bitch about it, I mean, like, really, I don't want to necessarily take Limp Bizkit's side on something, but I do take their side on this. They were all at that trough, and fuck Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah, they sang "fuck you, I won't do what you tell me." That's no less insightful or incendiary. So yeah, for him to judge like that,
Was Ando talking? Were you talking about Korn, or are you talking about Rage?
Rage.
So, but Korn threw them under the bus as well.
True. Yep. And I'm sure we could find lyrics of theirs that are equally
incendiary.
Yeah.
Oh, Korn has some brutal lyrics for sure.
So no, it was just a matter of timing and energetics, because they set the schedule. It's always to build and build. And I bet Limp Bizkit was picked for that slot because they're like, oh, it's going to be mad. It's going to be fucking mad, and like, I don't know, you could have predicted this, and maybe somebody did. Maybe somebody decided, hey, let's put them all on fucking tarmac in the middle of the summer and get them all drunk and let them just destroy themselves. I'm not above thinking that's a possibility. It's a similar thing to Woodstock and like how much MK Ultra fucking influence was going on at Woodstock. Where was all that acid coming from? I mean,
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, it's right about the harvesting energy too. And I mean, somehow this is something that has been spoken about that I have brought up in the past, but it's about like harvesting energy from these events. I don't know how. I don't know how they store it. Whatever, maybe in the ether somehow. And then using actually that energy for unexpected events that they haven't built up and haven't told us that is sort of happening, like 9/11, for instance. Yeah, I don't know how it all works, but it's an interesting theory. I'm not saying that's exactly what happens. It's just an interesting theory. Energy harvesting. And, you know, of course, we always seem to somehow come back to the Matrix movie, don't we?
You know, what's interesting about that is the concert vibe has changed since COVID, the pandemic, I should say. Sorry, I'm correcting myself there. But there is less energy from the crowd. There's less energy to harvest. And it's funny because the bands, in my experience, the bands brought a lot of energy to the stage, and the crowd did not reciprocate in the same way that they used to.
Yeah, that's really interesting that you should say that, because I have also noticed that. And even though I've sort of been out of the scene for a few years now, but I was very involved with one of Australia's biggest bands. Basically, we did their website, and they were good friends of ours, etc. And the guy that was in the front man, he had this thing that he used to always say, it was E equals MC squared, and he used to talk about how the energy used to come from the mass of the crowd. E equals MC, whatever. It was his little thing. He used to sign it next to his autograph and stuff. And yeah, I mean, I noticed over probably a decade, maybe, definitely that there was like this energy suck. This is way pre 2022, by the way. This is still in the new millennium. But yeah, it was like, I don't know, maybe the crowd was just getting a little bit older or something. I don't know, but it was. I think it's just all the restrictions, perhaps, because in Australia, we've had a lot of restrictions that have completely changed entertainment life. So like 70s, 80s pub rock was just freaking awesome. It was wild, but you know, it was a whole industry. I mean, it was nothing like America. It was a whole thing, you know, it was an Aussie thing. And the energy was incredible. But then once in the 80s, once they started bringing in things like, you know, the no smoking laws and the DUI, you know, driving under the influence, etc., which, you know, I'm not saying was a bad thing, but it definitely changed the dynamic. And then things started getting a bit too tight, you know, a bit too restricted, and the and the noise laws. Yeah, people would buy these, you know, these high rises would go up next to these really famous pubs that were pumping, you know, every night with the best rock bands. And they'd buy these freaking apartments right next door, and then they'd try to shut down the pub because it was too loud. It's like, and a lot of them were successful.
Yeah,
so
that's been
that
happening.
really killed, right?
That's been happening around here, the places I go. Yeah, you know.
Damn,
well,
gentrification.
I will say it was actually kind of it was encouraging to see like a concert where actually the band commented on the fact that they were like, this is like the best crowd we've had since before COVID. Seriously. I was like, wow, this was just a Nirvana cover band. But like, I think it's this energetic field. It's this rise and fall, and people experience it sympathetically, right? In these crowds. And I have to say, like, it wasn't an energy suck. It was a boost of energy to be a part of this exchange, right, between performer and crowd, and to get into it a little bit. I love to dance and shit. You know, I stood at the edge of the mosh pit and, you know, bounced people off my shoulder as they came tumbling into me and shit. But like, I watched my buddy just getting shoved this way and that, and it made me laugh. I'm like, this is awesome. And I don't know, man, like there's a place for this music and shit. I'm not saying the music itself is mad, right? Like, I like that song by Limp Bizkit. It's a good song. It's good for fucking working out at the gym, or, you know, if you're just in a shitty mood. But like, when you got 400,000 people that have been treated poorly, not accommodated for in any way, shape, or form, there's no shade, there's no free water, there's no fucking help of any kind. Yeah, guess what? You've created a riot. You've incited a riot by creating this cauldron of negative emotion coupled with this, fierce fandom of the music itself, right? Like there's a reason these people didn't just leave. They wanted to see their favorite band,
Be interesting to know what sort of security they had at the gates. 1999, I guess. Yeah, it was just before mass security and really tightened up, wasn't it? Post 2001. But it still would be interesting to see whether there was, dogs, sniffer dogs at least, or something. I bet there wasn't. I bet it was just, free for all. Not saying that's a bad thing, but just letting everyone get really out of it and violent or whatever, instead of the safe and effective thing they always try to do.
Well, I watched a guy, like an old kind of guy, who he's like, I was there, man. I was there. And I bribed this. I'm not joking. I watched this guy talk for like 30 minutes. Cause I was like, I want to get the inside scoop on this Woodstock 99 thing. And he's like, yeah, I just bribed the guy with $5 and he let me come through with like all my shit. So that's the kind of security,
Wow, that's cheap.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you guys ever read The Grapes of Wrath? Or are you familiar with the story?
I never did read it.
So
I'm ashamed to say. Yeah.
It starts with the Dust Bowl, right? There's a whole bunch of basically sharecroppers who are getting kind of driven off their land because tractors are taking over, right? It's the early 1900s. And there's all these flyers going around for work in California picking fruit. And they're selling it like, there's jobs here, there's money to be made, there's plentiful food, blah, 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 blah. So this whole like nation's worth of people who had been sharecroppers but were no longer useful for farming in the Midwest went out to California. And then because there were so many people, the wages were shit because they had way more workers than they needed, and therefore they could pay as little as they wanted. So people were starving. People were trying to survive on the extra fruit. So they were getting dysentery and stuff because you can't really live on freaking fruit. And it just reminds me of like with bringing 500,000 people to a music festival, you're kind of doing the same thing. Like there's no way they're going to be prepared for that probably. There's no such thing as enough porta potties or enough water.
Mm-hmm. Apparently the porta potties were full like halfway through the first day, and people were just shitting all over the place. It was awful. It was the Fire Fest or whatever. If you ever saw that documentary of the night.
Yeah, they were very ill prepared.
Totally. Funniest part of that one is it's almost like, well, fuck all those rich cunts, because
right. If you're spending that much money to go to some island for a music festival, then it's kind of
and they just got fully scammed. I mean, come on.
There was a few peanut butter sandwiches.
Yeah. But no, man, madness can come about, at any moment. Like, if I may, before we come off of this concept of like energy sacrifice at concerts, this was the biggest fuck up in the stagehand industry in like the last 100 years, and it happened in Indiana. I know some people who know the people who died, at least a couple of them. In their words, they lost some brothers, right? There's what's called the Stagehands Union, and it's just like the Electrical Workers Union or the United Auto Workers or the Plumbers Union, or it's the stagehands. And I think 2 of the stagehands died. This was 13 years ago.
You're watching America This Morning, America's #1 early morning news.
Well, questions about safety are swirling this morning after that deadly stage collapse at the Indiana State Fairgrounds.
5 people were killed and more than 40 injured in the accident, being blamed on a freak gust of wind. ABC's Larry Jacobs has more on the victims and the investigation.
Friends and co-workers gathered in Chicago to remember 29-year-old Christina Santiago. She was at the Indiana State Fair waiting for Sugarland to perform when that stage collapsed Saturday night.
She's just a brilliant person. I mean, everything about her was brilliant.
And in Fort Wayne, Indiana, a candlelight procession in memory of Alina Big Johnny. She was just 23, the youngest of the 5 people killed when that stage collapsed Saturday night. The fair was closed in mourning Sunday as officials began their investigation. How safely was the steel scaffolding constructed? Should the crowd have been evacuated? Well, they had been warned that there was a possibility due to thunderstorms approaching. And in a flash, it happened.
Next thing I looked over my shoulder, and the stand started coming down. I heard people screaming and yelling, and the funnel cloud kept on going, just moving trash cans and everything else.
You saw people running, and next thing you know, you look back and there's people underneath the stage trying to get out.
Thousands gathered at the fairgrounds were stunned as the sudden powerful wind gust blew down the huge stage, sending metal, lights, and sound equipment crashing down on concert goers.
This was an isolated, significant wind gust.
Then chaos, screaming, people running for shelter, others racing to help those pinned beneath the mangled stage. 5 people were killed, dozens more injured. Sugarland canceled their show Sunday at the Iowa State Fair, and when the Indiana State Fair reopens Monday, there will be a public memorial to honor all of the victims.
Okay, I know, big time bummer town. This like totally sent a shockwave through the whole industry. Like, Stella, you've worked in this industry as well. I've worked with the stagehands, not a lot, but enough to see how it operates. And there are very heavy lights and speakers, and the truss that gets built above a stage is so heavy. And I will say, like I said, they've upgraded the safety standards ever since, but it was only a matter of time, right, before this happened somewhere. And it was horrific. It was really bad. If you were just listening and not seeing, I mean, it's a violent image of that stage collapse. I mean, yeah, people got fucked up.
Yeah, rigging is one of the most important crew members of the whole thing in that sort of situation. And I can tell you, when was this? 2000? When was this? 2011. Okay, well, it's just as well it wasn't in the older days, because since, I don't know what year it was, probably around about the 90s, I guess, maybe late 90s. For instance, lighting equipment, particularly. Oh, it might have been late 80s, actually. Anyway, lighting equipment was really, really heavy in the older days. I mean, you'd have the PAR 64 cans, you'd have the 56s. They were heavy, and you'd usually have like 4 to a truss, which would be on a tree, and you might have, 4 trusses to a tree, sort of, for instance, plus the overhead racks, all that sort of thing. You'd have, 60, 100 can light shows, easy, 120 can light shows, no worries. Those things were heavy. But once they changed to LED technology, which was a lot cheaper to run, etc., and hell of a lot lighter, that would be the best case scenario to have. I'd rather have an LED can fall on me than an old 64 or something. So, yep. Just saying, it's equipment-wise, it's come a long way. But the other thing is, I suppose, that, technology tends to get better, which often makes the labourers worse, because as things become more automated, people only learn the motions. They don't have the understanding. So they don't have the foundational, the fundamental physics of how things work. They just know if you put A onto B, you get C. Get in the car and press the pedal, it goes, sort of thing. So there's a lot to be said for the older analog days, because you understood the processes and the methodology, and the whys, Quite an art. They were very skilled people. They should.
It's very technical, and like I have a lot of respect for the riggers that I know.
Oh,
and
yeah.
In case I wasn't clear, that's riggers with an R. That's 2 hard R's in one word. But
the R at the beginning is the one that really counts.
That's the key one. Yeah.
Not Riggins. No.
Yeah. But no, they're badass motherfuckers. There's something in between a rock climber and an electrician and a carpenter.
100%. In fact, most of the ones I knew did actually rock climb. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
I didn't
they've got
even like
all.
getting up a ladder, but these
Yep.
guys are just, they're like monkeys.
They've got all the gear because it's the same gear. It's harnesses, it's
Exactly.
ropes. One of the riggers when I was working a job this past winter, I was setting up the stage for what's it called? Frozen, on Broadway, right? And one of the riggers dropped their walkie-talkie, and it's gay.
Oh, you mean he let it go?
It fell, and it landed about 2 feet away from me, and it hit the ground like a ton of bricks. They're about 50 feet up. If that had hit me in the head, I would have been fucking out like a light, dude. And I heard it go whoosh, bang, yeah.
Yeah.
It's no joke, man. Like, people don't think about what goes into a concert. But
Oh, yeah.
if
They're
I
usually setting up 2 or 3 days before a concert or a week before. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to
It's
tell you
just like,
guys. Go ahead.
it's just, sorry, can I just say one thing?
Yeah, finish.
Please go and listen to Jackson Brown's, I think it's called The Load-In. Jackson Brown, The Load-In. Just Google that and have a listen, because that was sort of, he wrote that for the roadies. And it's a really awesome song. Yeah. Sorry, Andy.
Oh no, it's fine. So I've also done some handwork, but it wasn't super complex. I wasn't like really deep into it, but I've been all over this biz. And in the pedicab aspect of it, I was working a festival in Atlanta called Tomorrow World. It's a big rave. And the last year of it, the year before it got canceled, the reason it got canceled was because there was a steady downpour. The whole place was completely mudded up, and they had to cancel it in the last day. We couldn't even take the pedicabs anywhere. Anytime I'd walk, I would be almost to my knees in mud. It was super sludgy out there, and yeah, these things they all take something big to make them happen. And and yeah, there's all kinds of crazy stuff. And back here off the air, I mentioned that, and it reminded Ashley of the Astro World fiasco that happened about 2 years ago. Was it? I think it was about 2.
Yes, it's been recent. It was in COVID times, but there was a lot of dissection.
Was that the trampling thing?
Yeah. Well, I think it was iffy on what actually caused the deaths of these people.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of dissection by
Yeah,
this
wasn't it?
particular event.
It was post-vax, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
They were giving baxes in the parking lot. So I'm from Houston, and I remember real Astro World, and that's why Travis Scott was trying to sort of resurrect the spirit of this old amusement park from our area, and but yeah, I worked one year, and it wasn't that crazy, but I guess this one was crazy because people were chomping at the bit to go to something. I didn't make very much money on this. Like, this is a Houston festival, and it should be, it should be something that's just slams up that area, because that's the same area I work when I'm working rodeo and Texans games and just a lot of big stuff. It's Reliant Arena or Reliant Stadium in Houston. Well, it's not actually in that. It's just a little off of that, where Astro World used to be. Astro World used to be on the other side of 610 from there. Anyway, yeah, so there was this whole thing about Travis Scott sort of opening portals. There was people overdosing on fentanyl, maybe, or was it that they were getting vaxxed in the parking lot, because there was this whole thing about the vax at that time.
They blamed it not on trampling, but like crushing, wasn't it? Like, they said
crushing and trampling are about the same thing, but people sort of
weren't people dying of heart attacks at that event.
That's
like
strokes
kids
and
dying
stuff.
of heart attacks.
Yeah. But then also he was doing this whole weird chant, and there was a whole bunch of imagery for portals and shit going on there. Luckily,
Yes,
I
I
wasn't at
remember
this
that.
one. I was in the truck at the time. This is the truck part of my life, not the standing out in the parking lot getting people getting people from A to B. I was getting freight from A to B at the time. But yeah, that was a weird thing, and that's something we should look into if we're going to talk about crowds.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Just before we move on too far away from it, I need to correct silly me. Jackson Brown, he wrote the load out. Of course it is. That's the hard end.
Right,
The load out. The
after-
load out
yeah.
/ stay. That's what you want to. Yeah, it's bloody awesome. Okay.
After the show is the hardest part of the gig, and that's
Oh,
that's the thing about stagehands. They're kind of a rare breed. They have to show up and work before the show as
Yeah.
long as it takes, and after the show as long as it takes.
There is a lot of standing around, sitting around, filling in
Yep.
time, especially on tour. It's like there's not quite enough time to go back to the motel room,
Right.
so we'll just hang here, and do something. And that was before mobile phones. So.
It's a
Reminds
pretty
me of college.
Yeah. No, it's a rough lifestyle, and it's no surprise to me that like riggers are often climbers, because these guys are like a different breed. And the fact that we brought up rock climbers ago, I had this in my list and I wasn't sure if I'd use it, but it seems to fit. It's another example of the subtle shift from whatever we call sanity into whatever we call madness.
I think this photo will go down as one of the most disturbing in the history of Yosemite Park. And that's because at this spot, not long after this picture was taken, the climber in question, named Dan Osman, would find himself in his horrifying last moments. This is his legendary story. A 35-year-old rock climber that many would describe as insane, Dan was like a real-life Spider-Man. He would scale terrifying heights with nothing but a bit of chalk, the clothes on his back, and a grip as strong as his willpower. Dan Osman was a legend in the world of rock climbing, and he still holds records for being the fastest free climber until a freak accident took his life unexpectedly. In an ironic twist of fate, it wasn't even free soloing that brought him to his last terrifying moments. At the end of the video, you'll see footage of the group who tried repeating his last ever stunt over 20 years later. You can't underestimate the bravery and willpower it takes to climb up the steep face of a mountain with no support ropes. This is known as free solo climbing. Imagine starting your climb at the base of a 1,000-foot cliff face. You look up at this beast towering before you. Once you start, there's no going back, and one mistake or misplaced step could lead to a deadly fall. You begin your chilling climb, drying your sweaty palms with a bag of climbing chalk as you move from crack to ledge. You're now above 40 feet, meaning a fall will more than likely be fatal. After minutes of suffering that feel like hours, you eventually reach the halfway point. You can almost taste the sweet water and relaxation waiting at the top of this momentous climb. Suddenly, your muscles freeze up. A combination of fear, fatigue, and adrenaline courses through your veins, robbing you of the vital strength needed for the climb. Your body is telling you to let go, but your mind knows you won't survive this fall. Then, something else takes over. It's a feeling of sheer willpower and drive. You've embraced the fear of the unknown. Now your mind is telling you that you can choose to live, so long as you keep moving. Dan Osman embraced this fear as though he were personal friends with the Grim Reaper himself. When you're midway up a free climb without support ropes, it's not your training or skill that keeps you from falling. It's the fear of gravity and the determination you have to overcome it. This is the feeling Dan Osman lived for. He wanted to stare the end in the face and push himself to keep living. His friends knew him as Dano, and he's still considered one of the fastest free climbers that ever existed. In a record-breaking climb, Dan Osman scaled Bear's Reach without the use of any safety ropes. He completed the 400-foot climb at a walking speed of 4 minutes and 25 seconds. Many thought that free solo climbing would be the end of Dan, when in fact, ropes would play a big role in his tragic accident. Dan may have climbed freestyle, but as you're about to find out, he was no stranger to falling either. His rock climbing exploits started when he was just a teenager of 14 years old. His father, Les Osman, attributed his fearless nature and diehard spirit to his samurai heritage. The Japanese-American descended from samurai warriors known as the Takuchi clan, who moved to Hawaii at the end of the 19th century. His father passed on a samurai level of discipline through Aikido and other martial arts. Les Osman said, in climbing, he found something where he could test himself against himself. He met the tiger, and he didn't run. All a fall from the cliff face. They're exhilarating as they are dangerous. He wasn't just known for free climbing, but for the insane whippers he deliberately did. A whipper is what rock climbers call a fall from the cliff face. They're exhilarating as they are dangerous, so most climbers only experience it when they mistakenly fall, and their rope saves them from the ground below. But for Dan, he couldn't get enough of the exhilarating feeling that comes with a fall. It scared him at first, but he realized there was a thrill to it that was absent in the methodical discipline of climbing. By mastering and confronting his fear of falling, Dan became more comfortable on the rock face, catapulting his abilities. When describing his approach to free climbing, Dan said, "Soloing is just a game. It's a serious one, but it's a game. The price of messing up is your life, so you better know what you're doing." Dan Osman held records for his rope jumping stunts, often launching himself off a cliff and falling over 1,000 feet before being jerked to safety at the end of a rope. As much as Dan took risks, he also had a methodical approach to safety. With the mindset of an engineer, he would devise and implement the tight ropes and winches for his dangerous falls. But as you'll see, even a methodical approach wouldn't be able to stop fate in the life of Dan Osman. Although he was an expert climber, his journey came with its fair share of accidents and injuries. In the 90s, Dan experienced the effects of a nasty fall that took him out of the game for a couple of months. It happened on one of the Lake Tahoe's hardest routes on Cave Rock, known as Slayer, where Dan wanted to take a particularly big whipper with the help of his belayer. A belayer is someone who provides friction on a rope, allowing them to catch the climber in case of a fall. But on this day, Dan's belayer was inexperienced. Dan took confidence, bravery, and skill to do it. He decided to change the location of where he was jumping from and poised himself at the cliff edge. Adrenaline coursed through his veins as he looked at the monumental fall in front of him. He'd done this hundreds of times before. Why would anything go wrong now? He took a deep breath and let his survival instinct go, smoothly jumping from the cliff like a proud eagle taking flight. With outstretched arms, Dan flew headfirst, feeling the wind rush past his ears and exhilaration run through his heart. He got to the end of his controlled fall, but as the ropes tightened, a tremendous snap reverberated through the air. Dan Osman's controlled fall was over, and his uncontrolled descent began. Miles Deisher heard the final sounds of his close friend as he fell, and then there was silence. What exactly happened that led to Dan's tragic end? It likely started with his arrest a few weeks earlier. Perlman said that it hurt him. It was mentally crushing. They caged the wild falcon. Not only was his spirit and confidence broken from his stay in jail, but the ropes used in his final jump had stayed out in the elements for all that time. They were exposed to rain, snow, and heat that weakened them over time. It was likely this, combined with the change in jump angle, that caused the rope to snap.
I don't know. Maybe you just don't jump off of mountains.
It's pretty crazy. Just the thing between you and death is a piece of string. I mean, bloody hell. String theory.
He wanted to die that way.
Yeah, there's
Take up, mate, take
when
up
you chase
knitting.
death that hard, you chase death that way, that hard. That's how you want to die. I mean,
I agree. It's a certain level of
respect
thrill
him.
seeking where it's like, if you're going to go skydiving 1,000 times and pull the parachute a little bit later every time, to the point where you're really cutting it close and you keep increasing that risk, eventually you're going to get caught by the ground.
Yes, absolutely. There's only one way to go. And those Acme umbrellas don't work.
Sounds like you speak from experience there.
I also wanted to chime in. I don't know. There is definitely a whole like, this is the way that you live your life. Like, this is you. This is what you do. But part of me also thinks like, where does the reflection come in for you as a person that maybe maybe this was meant for him, like maybe that was how it was supposed to be, but also like when do you start to look at, am I just addicted? Like this is addict behavior. So when, kind of like to tie it into Mike's theme, when are you mad? When are you mentally ill versus this is your destiny?
Great point. Yeah. There's a very fine line between that sort of insanity. I mean, trusting, that's not very wise to put so much trust into, well, an inexperienced, I can't remember the name of them, but the guy that stays down the bottom and keeps the ropes taut and whatever. And equipment.
Belair, yeah.
Yeah. I've actually done that myself, but I didn't know what I was. Yeah, and also the equipment that had been out in the weather. I mean, an experienced climber would know that. So it makes you wonder that maybe, I don't know, that just makes you wonder. Makes me wonder.
Might have just figured it was fine. Just it was out for like XYZ days. It's probably fine. I would change it if it was like this amount of days, but not that amount of days.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, again, how addicted are you? Oh, I think it's more the convenience factor. He's like, I already got myself in position here.
Yep.
Do I go buy all new gear or do I just go?
So my thing has been long distance cycling, but it doesn't really put you in. I mean, I guess the risk is certain highways, certain highways that don't have good enough shoulder, etc. There's been a few highways that I've had religious experiences on just because, I was lucky to be alive. Crossing a bridge or something like that didn't have a shoulder on a pretty fast highway. And I know most people think cyclists are annoying, whatever, I don't care. But yeah, there's I never got the gumption, I guess, to go on a bike tour where in a place where I wouldn't be able to refill my water frequently enough, or the elements would just be too harsh. I mean, there were situations where I had to deal with some bad elements, dealt with heat for sure, and some cold here and there, and definitely some storms. But yeah.
Oh, you mean like a whole herd of elements?
I don't think I've just chased death like that. You know what I mean?
I'm right there, dude.
I like it. Okay.
I'm right there with you, Ando. Like, even though I love motorcycles, I went on one group ride that really kind of turned me off of group rides because these guys were reckless and I could not keep up. In fact,
that's why
I just tried. I chose not to, because I'm like, I'm not mad. I'm not a madman. And also I didn't have the bike that I needed to do that kind of, some of these guys knew what they were doing. No, I'm not on that bike and I'm not that rider.
Gotta have a crotch rocket to do crotch rocket things.
No shit. Yeah.
Back to the madness of crowds. Yeah. Sorry, dogs are barking, but yeah, there's an event called Critical Mass. It happens in most cities in the United States every Friday, and it's all about cycling awareness. Like hey, notice cyclist kind of thing. But it's a big, obnoxious ride with a lot of people that have bad attitudes, and I stopped doing it after a couple of them. I went on a couple of them, and I'm like, oh, cool, social cycling, I like this. And then I'm like these guys are just dicks about it.
I've gotten pretty wary. I've gotten pretty wary of crowds. I went on one, they call it the Turkey Trot. It's on Thanksgiving morning, and it's like a 3K or 5K, run, walk, whatever. But it's like thousands and thousands of people being ushered through what equates to cattle, chutes. We're all penned in and like it made me so uncomfortable. I'm like, I will never do that again. My sister was like, new Thanksgiving tradition. I'm like, no, thank you. And this concert I went to, even though I had a good time, there was a moment where, of course they wand you with a metal detector. So I did something I don't normally do, and that's leave my gun in my truck. Right. So I go in there unarmed, and they got a little area kind of fenced off where you can go smoke a cigarette without leaving the concert, right? Because you're basically like not supposed to leave the concert. And I'm out there smoking, and these 3 teenage black kids, not to say they have to be black, but we've covered this. We've covered the juvenile crime thing. The youths in the city, the urban youth,
Scholars.
These three cats show up, and they're just acting bizarre, and they all have their faces covered, right? With basically not COVID masks, but just this is the new thing. I don't know if you've noticed, but the urban black youths, they've gotten very accustomed to wearing a mask all the time.
Oh, you see that masks are back. This is something current event that I think is going to play into this, is that you notice the Palestine protests that are happening right now, and all. Okay, man, because the angles that are going on in this is you've got Greg Abbott being a douchebag and freaking out about this stuff, and Mike Johnson went all the way to New York to go make a big deal out of this. By the way, this is all controlled opposition. This is all funded by Soros and the Rothschilds and a bunch of NGOs, and it's the same paid provocateurs as it is every single freaking time. A lot of the people that are protesting on behalf of Palestine are Jewish themselves, and so you see how it works. They control their opposition. This thing is a big mess, and so this mask thing, we're not going to see it go away probably in our lifetime, because it's too useful for the left as a tactic, and too useful for. I wish Rob was here, because Rob has a very extensive knowledge on the Bolsheviks, but it really does serve multifacets of a Bolshevik agenda.
I will just attest to the return of the masks. I was driving through Philly yesterday and saw a bunch of young, apparently healthy people walking along the road with masks. And I've seen that even in some of the towns, some of the bigger town cities closer to me. It's strange. And I don't see it. I certainly don't see it in my town or in the country where I mostly spend my time.
I have noticed a few people doing it around here again too, a little bit, but it's noticeable.
It was so funny on the Mad Max ride. We stopped at this food hall, which is this new kind of it's like a mall, but it's just food and bars. But there's a central area and then a bunch of different vendors, right? And we go in there, and it just so happens to be on the day of the Gay Art Fair. I'm not kidding. That's what the sign said. Gay Art Fair.
So that's an exhibition of gay art, or what?
Gay art, yeah. And I'm like, what if I'm a straight artist? Am I allowed? I mean, that's not very inclusive.
You can be straight and make gay art.
True.
You might walk in straight and come out gay. Who knows?
You never know. But, we walk in, 30 of us all Mad Maxed out with half of them were carrying fake guns. A couple of us were carrying real guns.
Oh, this sounds wonderful.
Oh, and, three quarters at least are pretty costumed out as post-apocalyptic road warriors. And we walk into the Gay Art Fair. It was so fucking funny. And, I start walking around. I'm trying to decide what I want to eat, because there's 12 different places to get food. And I
It'll
noticed
all make you gay.
Well, no, the food wasn't gay. It was just this like pop-up art fair. They're setting up like booths and tables, right? It's like a craft fair, but only for the gays.
Can I get you some gay with that, sir?
Yeah, right. And I noticed that like probably a good third of the gays selling their quote unquote art had masks on. And I'm like, oh my God, like these people are unbelievable. But now, so I'm realizing though, so there's the dumb fucks / maybe communists that do it out of instinct to hide their identity for the collective, right? Or it's the straight up common criminal that's like, fuck you, I'm going to wear a mask. I don't want you to know who I am. I'm going to do some shit and it's going to be very illegal, right?
Maybe
Similar but different.
Maybe they don't want to catch your homosexuality.
You mean my heterosexuality?
I mean, sorry.
Yes, a bunch of straight
that's
posers.
What I meant.
Yeah, that's what you meant. Yeah,
hetero.
yeah.
That is definitely what I meant.
Yeah. Well, it's not even that simple anymore. They wouldn't want to catch your heteronormativity or some fucking bullshit.
Yeah, there's too many isms out there.
It's the phobias. The phobias are where the problematicness comes in.
The made-up phobias that nobody knew they had until they were told.
Well,
Right.
And I'm not phobic of black people, right? I've got a black friend. I'm kidding.
All right, you're in the clear.
I've got a few black friends. I'm kidding. But when I see 3 hooligans with masks on acting bizarrely outside of a concert that I am currently penned inside of smoking a cigarette in a cattle pen, I'm not even kidding. Like that's how I feel. I'm like these metal barricades. I'm sheep. I'm ready for slaughter in this motherfucker. And for all I one of them's got a backpack. They're all wearing fucking hoodies, even though it's 79 degrees out. And that's in Fahrenheit, by the way, Celsius.
Celsius.
Stella.
Celsius.
Could be my alter ego. Celsius Crumpet.
Yeah. Celsius Crumpet. Love it.
Celsius.
But I'm like, one of these kids is about to just pull out a gun and shoot us because most of us are white, and I actually looked at the security guard and he was eyeballing him too. And I walked over there, and made a point not to obstruct his view. I let him keep looking, but I kind of almost leaned in and whispered, like, these kids are acting fucking deranged, right? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, well, I appreciate you keeping an eye on them, bud. What I didn't say is I don't appreciate you not letting me have my gun in here. It's the same guy that waved the metal detector on me to make sure I didn't. But I'm like, fuck these punks. I feel like a fucking fish in a goddamn barrel right now.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I'm pretty sure I'm done with concerts that have that level of security.
No, keep it small. Stay at the local pub or the local whatever.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. Support the locals. We've got to think more local. This is the only way around this machine is to get back to the little root level, locals. Just go back to roots. Yeah.
Just out of interest, Mike, was that the Nirvana cover band that had that level of security?
Yes.
Wow.
It's like it's kind of a mid-sized venue, if you can call it. It's small, but it's on the bigger side of small. And
have I told? Yep. Sorry.
Well, I actually tried to go in there. They've basically got an indoor venue that's a pretty small room, right? Maybe 200 people max. And then they've got an outdoor space that you could fit 600 people or so. But I was going to my first show there and I had my fucking little snubby revolver, which you almost wouldn't even feel in a pat down, but the guy felt it. I was not expecting a pat down. He pats me down and he feels it and his eyes got real big and I'm like, yeah. And he's like, put it in your car or you can't come in, And I'm like, okay.
I love Indiana.
Yeah. But he was actually...
I cannot imagine that going well where I live.
You can't even do that in most cities in Texas. And
he was actually surprisingly cool, but you could tell it surprised him. I'm like, dude, I didn't expect you to, grab my ass. So
remember the woman that smuggled a gun into a baseball game through her ass crack and ended up shooting somebody? That was a Cubs game, right?
No, White Sox. I think.
Oh, White Sox. Oh, yeah, it was White Sox. That's right.
That was the joke. I'm like, yeah, that'll only happen at the White Sox.
She smuggled the gun in
under her
butt
tit.
crack. It's under her tits. Okay.
Yeah. Well, because she accidentally shot herself and someone else, and it was like an abdominal wound. So like I think it might not even been her tit, but just some fold somewhere.
Wait, it was just a fold.
A fold.
A fold. It was just a fold.
It's an unfortunately placed fold.
Oh no, she's on a roll.
I'm thinking more down at the lower part of the abdomen, if I'm guessing. But
the roly foldy poly bit.
Yeah. You wouldn't find nothing if you were patting her down, I swear to God.
I bet it smelled wild in there.
Oh my God. That gun, I'm surprised the gun worked.
Can you please lift your stomach, man?
That poor gun, I feel bad for the gun. But if I may, let me play you just a couple minutes of this. This is the most violent city in America.
Comes to car-related fatalities.
Memphis sits at the top of a not-so-illustrious list. Most dangerous city in America for drivers.
1 out of every 5 deadly crashes in Memphis is caused by speeding. No other city even come close to that statistic.
There are some shitty drivers out here, I gotta say. We've seen a uniquely disproportionate amount of effed up vehicles on the side of the road relative to the amount of cars. And right across the street, I spotted a car that had just crashed. And close by, there were 3 shiestied up kids who looked like they should be in school right now. What happened?
Hit the pole. They hit the pole. They messed
They
up.
just hit the ball? So they literally just hit the ball.
Yeah.
This is something you guys see on a daily basis or what?
So I'm just saying these 3 kids look just like the 3 teenagers at the concert.
Yeah, babe.
Do we need to check up on the person in there? Hold on. Oh, there's nobody in there. Okay. Okay, so I've noticed also everyone in Memphis is a terrible driver. I gotta put that out there. I see you guys right outside the gas station, shiestied up. What are you guys up to right now? I'm not a Fed.
We finna go do something.
What do you mean?
I can't tell you that. You got a wire on.
I've heard a lot of the youth are up to no good out here. Is that true?
No, sir.
Most of them. Like, it's some niggas behind service stop station.
Yeah? What do you mean?
They some hoes.
Are you guys strapped?
Can't let you know that.
Is it pretty common for guys your age to be strapped? How about that? Let me take that question, yeah?
Yeah,
We can blur all the faces. We can blur your eyes even. How about that?
All right, send them. Yeah.
You guys are strapped?
Yeah.
Legit. You guys actually have a piece on you. How old are you?
I'm 13.
13?
I'm finna be
14. 14.
Okay. Man, you guys are strapped. That's crazy. I don't know if I believe you guys are strapped, but I'm just going to decide to believe. Woo! Okay. Wow. Okay. That is crazy. All right. That's all I need to see. We don't need to see anymore. Have you guys had friends die out here?
Yeah, I did.
Plenty folks.
Yeah. My cousin think I shot him in the chest, but they really think I shot him. So,
They think you killed your cousin.
yeah.
What's the craziest thing you've seen out here?
Somebody got shot in front of me.
Somebody got shot in front of you?
Yeah, that's funny.
Funny?
How he died.
This the end of the interview.
Hey, thanks for your time, man. Be safe, all right? With prepubescent 13-year-old squeakers rolling around with shiesties and guns outside of a gas station during school hours, it's no surprise violence is so frequent out here. Also,
All right, that's probably enough of that for now, if not for the remainder of the show. But I wanted to introduce Memphis into the conversation because not only is it the road rage capital of America right now, it's also just full of teenagers running around with masks and guns, apparently.
Teenagers at just about to go into massive hormone world.
Oh,
You know,
yeah, about to. I think they're
Well,
right in the fucking thick of it.
I guess they are. Yeah. That happens a bit younger these days. But yeah, that's frightening. That's frightening. And they're all in their uniform, with the barely visible anything exposed that you could possibly identify them with. It's scary. These are like little shadows running around. It's creepy.
Beware of black teens with masks on. I'm just gonna say it like it is. I mean, for
Yeah.
real. If you live in America near any major city, you see 3 or 4 black teenagers with masks, fucking walk the other direction as quick as possible. I'm not
Right. So
fucking around. Yeah.
just to get an idea of the social climate over there. So it's the sort of thing where they'll just go anybody, like they're not sort of just going to go, the other gang or the dude
Oh,
down the road. They'll just go anybody.
do you ever hear about the knockout game?
The knockout game.
The
No,
knockout game. Yeah, I bet you Bear knows about it. I bet you Ando knows about it.
Bear's shaking his head.
No? Oh, it was a fun game where you would film your friends. You'd be in like the mall or the park or whatever, and you would just walk up behind somebody and try to knock them out in one punch. Just
okay.
somebody, because
Yes, right.
fuck them,
So there was a game that was Punch the Nazi, and one of my friends who was white but wearing black clothes, we were in Baltimore in like 2019. He got punched in the face for no reason, just outside of a club or whatever.
It wasn't for no reason, Bear.
Yeah, well,
What reason was it?
because he was white,
That's what I'm thinking.
standing there looking white.
Best be careful is all I'm saying, y'all. But Tennessee
Yeah.
is trying to do something about it. Go ahead, Stell, before I move
Sorry,
on.
on the topic. Australia in 2014, Australia introduced the one punch law because this is exactly what was happening. It's just kids would be just in town having a good time, walking along the street, and suddenly someone would just come along, one punch, and usually the damage was when they hit their head on the gutter or something like that. And that was happening, and few kids died, and some parents, I would have done it too. I don't know. It's hard to put yourself in that situation. Anyway, what happened was the parents of a couple of these young boys ended up getting the one punch law passed, and that resulted in also early closure of like different pub laws. So a lot of the pubs and nightclubs and things, it was not uncommon to have them going all night or very, very late till 3 or 4 or whatever. And once those laws started coming in, it was like a lot of them had to shut early, like completely shut, and also after midnight, I think it was, from memory, or maybe 1. If you went out of a venue, you weren't allowed to come back in. Basically, that was it. So it was shutdown laws, all that sort of thing. It really changed the social climate of Australian nightlife, actually, especially in the cities. They did, in the end, rescind that law after a few years. But I think, yes, whatever was the agenda must have been achieved. It did change the psyche of having a good time at night, like going out, and a lot of people in fear, of course, so they just wouldn't go out. They'd sort of stay home more and probably play video games and do things more online because it was safer. Who wants to go out and just end up dead because some idiot just comes up and, for a dare punches you? It's just crazy.
Yeah. No, it is almost an overreaction to the actual problems, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Or a wrong reaction, at least, but that makes me a little bit sus about it as well, in one sense.
Yeah, well, and I can appreciate the thinking behind this reaction that Tennessee is going with. It sounds like largely because of Memphis, but I'm sure it's happening in, Knoxville and other places in Tennessee, Nashville for sure. But they're passing a law potentially. I'm not sure if it's passed, but that would hold parents criminally liable.
Got to do something to get their attention.
Parents might want to watch their children a little more closely tonight. A bill passed in Tennessee will now hold parents partially responsible for crimes committed by their kids. Hello, I'm Greg Hurst.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Skurlock. It comes as part of an effort to curb juvenile crime in Memphis and in the state. WRG's Ashley Paul joins us now live outside of 201 Poplar after speaking with Sheriff Floyd Bonner about this bill and a couple of others that will soon become law. Ashley?
Yeah, well, it was just yesterday that Sheriff Bonner released a statement expressing concerns over the growing number of juveniles that are staying at the Youth Education and Prevention Center. And tonight, when we spoke with him, he spoke with us about some of the efforts being made to curb that juvenile crime.
If we don't sound the alarm now, what's going to happen this summer when the kids are out of school?
113 juveniles are spending the night at the Youth Education and Prevention Center tonight. A slight dip from the 118 that were there yesterday, but uncomfortably close to the record high 125 since the center opened last summer.
It's calling all parents to please, let's just take a look at our kids and what they're doing and who they're hanging out with.
WREG sat down with Shelby County Sheriff Floyd Bonner today discussing these concerns and a potential solution passed today in Nashville. Under the Parental Accountability Act, after the first offense, parents of juveniles who commit a crime will be required to pay $1,000 for each additional offense. If they can't afford the fine, they will be able to work it off through community service.
And I had to go along the interstate, and my friends, neighbors, loved ones saw me picking up trash because something that my son had done. I think I would pay a little bit more attention.
It's part of an ongoing effort to curb juvenile crime in Shelby County and across the state. Another bill passed this week, also with juvenile safety in mind, will allow teachers to be armed at school.
No, I am not for teachers carrying guns in school.
A year following Nashville's Covenant School attack, the newly passed bill aims to make classrooms safer. But despite the mandatory 40 hours of school security training and mental evaluation, Sheriff Bonner worries this falls too far outside the job description.
You go into the teacher profession to teach. You don't go into the teacher profession to be teacher / police officer / security officer and so on and so forth.
Now, during our conversation with Sheriff Bonner today, we also discussed plans for a new jail. You can find all those details on our website.
Okay. What do you think about that? Holding parents responsible.
I think that's the infrastructure and the system putting the fault onto the parents, which is actually the infrastructure and the system's fault to start with. That's what I think.
I see your point. I mean, there's a lot of reasons these kids are in the streets, right? I mean,
yeah,
again,
and it's usually,
I look at this and I think Mad Max. We have bands of roving marauders in the streets.
I think it's time to get those kids chipped.
It's not a stretch.
That's where it's heading.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And more surveillance as well, many more cameras. Oh, yeah, thank God for the surveillance, all the people will say.
Well, imagine it's not that far of a stretch to say there could be laws that say if you don't know exactly where your child is all the time, you might be held negligent or criminally liable or what have you. You know, so you have to track your child.
Yes, exactly. Safe and effective.
Mm-hmm. Any other thoughts? I can kind of throw us something from left field that I think is related, but I don't want to jump ahead.
So, sorry, I'd stepped out for a moment, but were you talking about like the roving gangs of kids on dirt bikes and four wheelers and whatnot?
Well, not
sort of
specifically
terrorizing cities. Yeah,
not specifically that, but if you can find a clip that shows us that, I mean, we've been covering the Wild 'N Out beat. I'm more talking about these teenagers that wear, you know, like buffs. You know, like it's not a COVID mask. It's not a balaclava, but it's like a buff, like a stretchy fabric mouth covering.
Oh, okay.
And
we call those gaiters.
Gators,
Yeah.
or whatever. It's a mask. It's a mask, and
Right.
it's become very like normalized. You know, even though it's not a COVID mask, it's very much not a COVID mask. No, these like kids are just wearing these masks out and about. I saw it at the concert I was at on Friday. These weird teenage black kids showed up with masks, these skin tight, you know, like whatever, breathable fabric. And they were outside the concert fence, but they were just acting erratic and had a backpack. And I'm like, God damn, this is like the first time I've not had my gun in months, you know, because I knew I would get metal detected going in. So
Getting
that's
wanted.
that's to catch you up.
So whenever I was in Baltimore, I want to say this was 2014, Baltimore. I saw this roving gang of street kids, and they were all on, like they're doing wheelies on dirt bikes and stuff like that. Very, very Mad Max style, but they were urban youths. If you want to do the little finger quotey things, urban youths, you know what I mean, right? And I bet one of those kids is the current mayor of Baltimore, because have you seen this guy?
No, I haven't.
Oh, well, the bridge went down and the guy is like 20 something years old. And by now, 20 something years old. He might have been in that gang of youths.
Well, to go back to Stella's point, I mean, there are a number of factors that go into what creates this. Like, you can't necessarily blame it on, everyone's an individual responsible for their own choices, but like, you create such an environment, such a, fucking post-apocalyptic environment, you almost can't blame people for behaving, as such. So let me just play you. I skipped way ahead. I'm going to play you just a minute or two here, just to give you a picture of what's really going on in Memphis, Tennessee. And I'm sure it's not really any different anywhere else.
I'll see you tomorrow. Hey guys, people are hustling, and the pimps were pretty friendly.
You know what I'm saying? You'll definitely look like a fed.
After seeing a taste of the underground economy here, we headed to Kenny's Barbershop in the South Side, a place where outsiders do not visit. So we're at the barbershop.
For sure. But we at Burke's Barbershop.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what part of Memphis are we in right now?
It's South Memphis.
Does it get dicey out here?
For real. You know what I'm saying? Like, you ain't from here, and you know what I'm saying? Go to Kroger or Walgreens, get your cigars or something. Go, you know what I'm saying? Go to the big store. You know what I'm saying? Don't go to no corner store.
What's going down on the corner store out here?
You know what going on everything.
What are your thoughts on if we interview some people near the corner store?
It's your own risk.
Yeah, you think we'll make it out alive or what? No?
Just be cool. Probably interview some people here.
Be prepared to run. Well, I'm here with. You hanging out at the barbershop today?
Hey, Mama, listen. Okay, this is a big town. The boss I took over the town. This is Bird town. This is forward up my day. This over there. This how long? So where you want me to talk from? Where you want me to do this?
Are you on any drugs today? Yeah. All right, I'm here with. You came in the barbershop doing this? Is this a Memphis classic right here? What is it?
Look, this how you do it.
Also, real quick, is that guy good?
Hey, Darrow, come here.
Is Darrow good?
Yeah, this my nigga Darrow.
Where the camera?
Right here.
Okay.
Here go the mic right here, though.
Darrow, how you doing, man?
Yeah.
Tell him where we at.
Okay.
We in South Memphis, man.
All right, we tried to talk to Darrell earlier. I'm gonna talk to you now.
Yeah.
So, what are your thoughts on Memphis?
You got to be on point. You see, I ain't just looking at you, the camera. I'm looking at because this shit going on. You got to be aware of your surroundings. Oh, watch out. Nah, I'm bullshit. But it'll be like that type shit, for real.
You been shot at?
I got shot 4 times. I got shot by my arm. I got shot stomach, side, back.
Now you have some paranoia, I imagine, right?
Right.
I don't want to get shot.
It just made me be like more observant and shit.
Is it common for people to get shot?
They're my boy True right there. They're my boy True.
Did I hear what to do?
What y'all got going up here with my guy Lil Mike?
He's giving us the breakdown on Memphis right now.
Oh, Memphis? Man, dangerous, man. Dangerous. Memphis dangerous. I done got shot multiple times, man. It's dangerous out here.
Shot too?
Yeah.
Where'd you get shot?
I got shot in the side, man. You don't see this man? Let me show you something, man.
This is unexpected. I didn't expect that so many people to get shot. Did you nearly
See
die?
that Yeah, I see you, man. 2-3 weeks.
People get shot out here for no reason. What happened?
No reason. You can just be out here like we in that shit pop off. People crazy out here right now. I don't know what they put in there, but it's crazy. They put something in the water or something.
But why was everyone getting shot out here?
Yeah, I ain't got to do nothing. It just,
You don't have to do anything to get shot up out here and killed.
Hell no.
Hell no. You don't got to do nothing.
So I have some thoughts on that. First of all, it's very weird to see people that be so casual that have been shot 4 times or have been shot in the ICU for 3 weeks or whatever that was.
Mad Max. You get used to you adapt or die.
Correct. And that's it's crazy to me though. And if you juxtapose that to, let's say, like a lot of conversation online for like a different demographic, for example, they would be like, and it has been so much trauma, so it's very weird to see people be that casual about that, because that is, I mean, I don't need to say it, life threatening, but a near death experience, that's like significant. But it's like the desensitization that has happened with that is it's startling, honestly. And I know what you're saying. Like you get used to it. It's just you adapt. I understand the concept, but it's really hard to just imagine like that's your life. Like, oh yeah, I just keep my head on a swivel, man, because I could just be shot anytime. Like that's bizarre.
Yeah, it's like living on this certain frequency all the time.
Yeah.
They never let us relax. Have we noticed? I mean, how many years or eras of peace have there been in the history of mankind? I think it's something ridiculous, like 20 years or something.
Yeah, not much.
Fully where the world wasn't somewhere at war. And it's sort of like that's the way the propaganda and everything and the psyops work. It's these waves and cycles, and they know exactly when to do it. The Overton windows come and go, and it's like, okay, it's hot, go. Don't let them relax. As soon as they relax, okay, next psyop, you're up.
The science of madness. Like that's what
5 minutes next, Mr. Psyop.
Yeah.
It's just a script. It's a cycle. Everything's cyclic, isn't it? Everything to do with humanity and organisms and everything is cyclic, from the mind to the body to the celestial. It's amazing.
So I wanted to chime in really quick too, because Western Civ was saying that it is not desensitivity, and that's fair. I'm willing to entertain that, but I do actually feel that, or we know that the Black community was intentionally targeted to destroy them. And that goes with CIA running crack in the neighborhoods. It's like the AIDS epidemic. It's gangster rap. I mean, those people were created by the CIA, literally, to probably serve a couple of purposes: fill up prisons, destroy the family unit, and also welfare in those communities. What's the word I'm looking for? It was basically encouraging people not to have a family unit because you could get more money from government help if you did not have two parents in the household. So
Incentivize, is that the word you wanted?
yeah, incentivized, yes, to not be a family unit. So I'm not arguing that, I don't know enough about it, but I definitely think that, at least in my line of thinking, it is absolutely a factor that this culture has been created. 100%. And what you have done is you have young men who normally would be starting families in a functional, in a healthy society, but they're out here shooting each other, they're getting shot, and maintaining family, like family values, that is so far away.
And cutting their penises off.
Well, probably not so much in this community. I think that's a different community.
No, I just meant generally the attack on men.
The attack, yes. Yeah.
It's either the violent, like there's probably 4 different types. There's the cut my dick off ones. There's the violent masked black ones. And I'm sure we could come up with a couple of other categories if we put our minds to it.
What's really different from the past, right? Like we've had black on black gang violence for decades in the US, but it's almost like it's not the Bloods and the Crips and shit so much. It's like kind of more chaotic, and there's not a whole lot of organized gangs. It's more just, I almost think there's a really diabolical social media influence on this. Like
100%.
I've watched some videos where they talk about, I think it was that same video. I'm not going to try to find it. We're kind of done with that. But the Tyler Oliveria one, where they're talking about how there's local rappers and it's all like this social media beef that leads to like street violence. Like it used to be like we're selling dope on our turf, and if you encroach, we're gonna kill you. Now it's like you said shit about my mama on Instagram, you know. So it's like kind of, at least before there was a profit. Well, I was gonna say profit motive or whatever, but like I guess there still is. Maybe it's no different. Instead of selling crack, they're selling, likes.
The attention economy.
The attention economy.
Yep.
But it makes it all seem a little bit more nonsensical.
Focus is the new currency for sure. I mean, the data is worth more than gold. So, your focus
Yeah.
and attention
It's
is
all
there.
about clout.
It's in the crosshairs. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think, there's so much like we do know, but we also don't know about the true manipulation of the algorithms and how this stuff gets shown to that. I mean, they know your your demographic, right? And they know what you watch, who you follow, all of that stuff. So
Yep.
it's also a lot of that is that being cultivated as well by social media. Why wouldn't it be? If the destruction of society in many, many different ways, we're reaching this community through gang violence, drug violence, like shooting each other, destroying the family unit there, then this, we are destroying them because we're making them sterile, we're cutting their dicks off, we're doing this, that, and the other thing. I mean, but ultimately is the destruction of, society, of family, of people.
Yep, from every single angle, and they've got it covered. It's like the world's like a mirror ball. Like they've got every facet covered with all their think tanks all through the decades at least, with the think tanks. Yeah, it's all coming together, Igor, basically. Yeah.
Well, I am tempted to go one of two ways. Okay. I'm tempted. Okay, go ahead, Ando. If you have thoughts.
One thing I gotta wonder is what was the point of bringing up the English beef with the Irish beef with the English at the very beginning of the show as the lead-in?
I just think it's a case of energetics at play. And if you
energetics,
like the emotional energetics of a crowd reaching a breaking point. And, I tend to err on the side, or not err on the side, but take the side of the Irish, right? They're being occupied.
And they're being occupied now.
They're still being occupied. They've been.
Well, I mean, they're being occupied now by the Indians and various places in Africa.
True.
But yeah.
But no, I brought it up because the Troubles, right? I often think about the Troubles and their similarity, I think, actually, with what's going on between Israel and Palestine, and just that breaking point of, what drives people towards terrorism, or in other words, towards madness, right? I'm not trying to be political about any of this. I'm just curious about this idea of madness and the breaking point where you choose. I think it's a choice. I do think it's a choice. You decide to no longer adhere to the rules. You say, fuck it. And I'm not advocating it. In fact, I'm advocating for de-escalation. I use the example of me antagonizing the meth heads with the stolen lumber and choosing to just shut my mouth, even though I could have antagonized them more. But I don't want to fight these fuckers because we're not quite in Mad Max. But it's starting to feel a little bit closer every day, I don't know.
Well,
so like the Troubles are just a modern example of how quickly madness can take hold,
I have a really fun question.
Okay.
Do you think that maybe we've suppressed ourselves so much that possibly we haven't gotten to the point of madness when we probably should have?
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. Is madness always wrong?
Good point. What's passion and what's madness? It's a fine line between those two things. And the opposite of that is apathy. And, there's a lot of talk, not not a whole lot of action. But then I suppose, when is the action going to take place? Is that a good thing? Is the action the answer, or is it just the separatism is the answer? That's the question, really. Do we need to fight, or do we need to flight and set up an alternative?
Well,
I think a lot of it's just the psyop. I think more of it is psyop than reality, to be really honest. I'm really more and more coming to this conclusion. Like I know it's stating Captain Obvious speaking here, but more and more I'm coming to the conclusion that more of it's the way we're looking at it because of what they're presenting than the actual threat, like we're aware and we're awake and we sort of can see what's coming and everything. But I think there's a lot of weight in that probably might not need to be there. There's, even being aware can also sort of be a trap because we see everything. You know what I'm saying? Like, for instance, making plans in the future. I have to admit, some of my plans since 2020, the element does come into it. But if I do that, what if they lock down? If I do that and pay this money for a deposit, what if that happens? What if I buy that van and then I can't, there's a digital ID that I can't get and blah, blah. You know what I mean?
I've definitely had those thoughts, especially when it comes to travel.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. That's pretty much all that it affects for me too.
I still think you should buy the van.
You don't know how close I came. Oh, man. But once I did the rego and the insurance sums, it made no sense.
Yeah.
I hate saying that because, oh, man, I was so close. I got the $1,000. I'm going to put the deposit. It's like, logic. Anyway.
It was a cool van.
Let's not dwell on that.
Sorry.
Right. I made a sensible decision. That's a celebration in itself.
So Ando had said that what's wrong with preferring people that look like you? I think that is a normal human thing to do. And if you want to look at a microcosm of that, then looking at prison culture, right? In prison, you are protected by the specific group that you are a part of. At least that's what we're told, right? And that would be like the white people, the black people, the Hispanic people, or however that may be. But there certainly is a natural tendency for that separation. So I do think that having a preference, like an in-group preference, is okay. It doesn't necessarily mean that you are whatever about other people.
Horses do it.
Yeah, I think there's a natural tendency to that. And I certainly don't think that it's wrong if people have that preference. So I just wanted to chime in because that's something I always think about. In prison, people stick like with like. That's the thing. Like,
But
that is how you stay safe.
It doesn't mean you don't have friends outside of your
Sure.
in-group.
Yeah, for sure.
That's how horses behave in a large enough herd. When you let them out to pasture, they group up by color, essentially. But they have like best friends and like, we almost, I worked on a ranch for a time and we were told by the people that worked there longer that there were almost like romantic kinships and like friendships between these horses, and oftentimes it would be with dissimilar types, but when you let them out to pasture, they would kind of group up together and take stock of each other and look after each other. And it's instinct. It's all about kinship. There's nothing inherently wrong with it.
Yeah, mammals are naturally herd animals.
Yeah.
My chickens do the same thing.
Yeah.
So the concept of racism is probably about 100 years old. I mean, not to say that aspects of it hadn't been around throughout time, but anybody that points to it, because everybody was what it was just people being normal. People being normal is look, people that I don't know, I'm gonna dislike them as a group unless I meet an individual that I like. And so I dislike groups. I like individuals. And if any of my preconceived notions about them are broken, then okay, cool, you're in. You can be cool with me. But as far as, do I want to go hang out in Memphis around those guys? Hell fuck no. I would never want to hang out on that street corner. It's bad enough if I have to park in actual Memphis, because West Memphis is where most of the truck parking is. But
Mhm.
parking in actual Memphis, I would fucking hate that. I've had to do it maybe twice. And that is one of the few places that I've seen lot lizards.
Well, they
It's
were
scummy.
talking
Memphis
how
sucks.
there's a certain area where if you see trucks, big trucks with trailers, if you see a truck here, it's probably because they're looking for a lot lizard, but I'm thinking I'm going to throw you a little Mad Max context, because I actually think there's a lot of brilliance in this film in terms of the psychology that it sort of captures. That's why I keep referring back to it, and I've kind of held on to this clip. And then I've got sort of a fun-ish, whatever, way to wrap up the whole thing with a guy who I think has done a fantastic job of avoiding madness while in some ways embracing it kind of at the same time. So let me throw this at you real quick. We'll get your thoughts, and then I'm gonna throw you at the end again to, I guess, foreshadow the oldest active gamer / streamer on the internet. He goes by Grandpa Gaming, but we're gonna get to that after this.
The world has gone mad, and when the world demands justice, only the mad can bring it. In 1979, George Miller, Byron Kennedy, and a small Australian film crew brought Mad Max to the world. A film made with barely any budget and by creators hoping to break into the film industry in any way they could. And the way they found was through Ozploitation, a regional offshoot of the growing trend of micro-budget exploitation movies that let new filmmakers break into theaters with a cheap film and an irresistible genre hook. Starring Mel Gibson, back when his insanity was an asset to the characters he played, Mad Max is set in the near future as society has begun to crumble, with only the officers of the Main Force Patrol standing between the innocent and the insane gangs that have taken over the roads. It's a world of lawlessness, and when Max loses his family to Toe Cutter and his gang, his sanity slips, and revenge becomes the only way to make sense of the world. In the decades afterward, Miller would shoot 3 more Mad Max movies, each building upon the apocalyptic mythology of his humble indie original and growing in scope, depth, and style. In retrospect, the original Mad Max is an outlier in a series of stories where the seeds of hope are planted in a wasteland by a broken man. But none of it would be possible without Miller and company's first foray into a dark world of road justice. To understand the world of Mad Max, we'll explore the exploitation genre boom that gave Miller and company their chance to make it in a country that had only started to build its own film industry, the influences that led Miller to create a story of highway carnage and madness, and the unmistakable blend of brutality and cartoonishness that turned Mad Max into an Ozploitation classic, whose influence can still be felt around the world today.
Pausing. I'm just curious to get Stella's input on the phrase or word Ozploitation. Have you ever heard that?
Ozploitation? No, I have not.
Isn't that something? It's like what do they call them? Blaxploitation? Is it like that too, where they slam the words together?
Yeah.
All those movies
Word
from the
soup.
70s, Shaft and Dolomite
Right.
and whatnot.
Yeah.
Do you mean kind of like cultural appropriation?
No, well, it's a funny thing in film where they talk about like exploitation movies. I guess they were exploiting a niche. That's the way I interpret. I don't take it as a total like. I don't take it as like cultural
Were they
exploitation.
making it in Australia? Is that
Yeah.
why it's so?
I don't-
It was
yeah.
a cheap way to make it.
Yeah.
They used to call that the flavor of the month or fashion or a fad. I mean, it's just like when things rise up, obviously people are going to exploit it and make money out of
Right,
it and
right.
create merchandise and all that kind of crap. It was a movie at the time, I mean, it was, what was it, 1980 was the original Mad Max with Mel Gibson and
79, I believe, but yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, either way.
Yep.
Sorry.
No, it's all right. Get the facts straight, Stella.
17. But it was, yeah. It was
No,
it was
forget it.
Mel Gibson's big break, if I'm not
Oh,
mistaken.
yeah.
Yeah.
He went to school with my best friend.
Really?
Anyway, he did. Yes, Joanne Samuel as well was another fairly well-known Australian actress. It was sort of one of a kind, as they said. It was a very low budget film, and probably was. It really did probably put Australian film making really on the center stage. Like there'd already been stacks of really good Australian films, but that one was pretty damn big. Crocodile Dundee's probably the other one, but that was later, I think. Yeah, that was much later. Oh, maybe that was 84. I don't know. Might want to look that one up. Since then, of course, the film industry has grown exponentially in Australia. They've got Fox Studios in Sydney and everything. But I remember watching Mad Max. I may have said this before. Forgive me if I, repeating myself ad nauseum. But I remember one day with my girlfriends as a teenager. Oh, I shouldn't have said that. Anyway, it was late after it had been out for a few years. But we all sat down and watched Mad Max. Oh gosh, I think it was about 8 or 9 times in a row. Like we just spent the whole day, smoking, drinking, whatever. 8, 9 times in a row. And we had a fabulous day. It was just like, we probably could have said the whole speech.
You're saying you watched the movie 8 or 9 times back to back? Wow.
Yep. We just loved it. I don't know, for some reason.
It's a really good film. It's a good film. And it's good because of its flaws and its haphazardness and its low budget. It is a total work of art, in my opinion. And I think every other Mad Max film was okay, but the first one was the lightning only strikes once, but it captured something about people. I really think it does. Any thoughts before I carry forward?
Just quickly, it just reminds me of the other low budget film that was sort of on par for me, which is, I'm just looking it up, 1971, which is Duel, Duel, by Steven Spielberg. If you haven't seen that, that is a must see. The original. That was about a $10,000 or $12,000 or $15,000 budget from memory. It was Spielberg's first film.
And I'm just gonna say, like, I think my understanding of the whole idea of an exploitation film is that they're exploiting like a fad or a new genre, or it's not so much that it's exploiting people or cultures. It's they're capitalizing on a new trend, and that's why these low budget films were able to kind of sneak their way into the big theaters, because they were capitalizing on a trend. Anyways, let me play this a little more, and I'll pause it when I think it's appropriate.
Exploitation films have existed for almost as long as film itself, with creators using taboo topics and boundary-pushing content to attract audiences and make up for their lack of budget. But the true wave of exploitation cinema crested in the 60s and 70s. As the Hays Code ended, restrictions laxed, and the grindhouse and drive-in boomed across the US. Suddenly, filmmakers with little budget had both a means of production and distribution. As for the term, exploitation came to define a focus on lurid taboo topics that let audiences feel like they were violating societal norms without actually breaking laws. The exploitation umbrella would quickly splinter into countless subgenres, and it's here where Ozploitation began. The Australian Film Commission was founded in 1975 by the Australian government, with the intent to kickstart the then non-existent Australian film industry. And it worked. The result was the Australian New Wave, marked by more prestigious films like Peter Weir's Picnic at Hanging Rock. And alongside it came the local wave of exploitation cinema, later termed Ozploitation, which looked to take advantage of the R rating, which was only created in Australia in 1971. Here, stories set in the outback and with a distinctly Aussie viewpoint captured an aesthetic that no other country could. And in this sudden explosion of film made fast and cheap, arrived George Miller. A young Miller had one foot in the medical world and one foot in the film world, studying medicine at the University of New South Wales and completing his residency at St. Vincent's Hospital in Sydney. All the while, Miller attended film workshops and shot experimental films on the side, with his interest in movie making leading to his friendship with filmmaker Byron Kennedy. Together, the two formed Kennedy Miller Productions and dreamed of breaking into the film industry. In the years between his residency and Mad Max's production, Miller worked in a Sydney emergency room, and the career both gave him the money to afford jumping into a film career with no guarantees, and countless experiences treating horrifying car crash injuries. This, along with the death of several friends in car accidents as a teen, led Miller to center his idea for a feature film on road-based action, with a future dystopian setting giving a reason behind the carnage. Miller and Kennedy soon hired James McCausland, Melbourne finance editor of The Australian, to write the script, with Miller providing a detailed outline and being heavily involved with the film's thematics and story structure, while McCausland focused on dialogue. McCausland was inspired by the 1973 oil crisis, saying, "George and I wrote the script based on the thesis that people would do almost anything to keep vehicles moving, and the assumption that nations would not consider the huge costs of providing infrastructure for alternative energy until it was too late." Made without the involvement of the Australian government, Miller and Company raised funds on their own, with Miller and Kennedy working on emergency medical calls to help foot the bill. In the end, Mad Max cost somewhere between $350,000 and $400,000 Australian dollars, with the film shot using only a single camera, one crane, and 5 used lenses bought for cheap after they were damaged in a previous film production. Besides,
All right, pausing. So, pretty neat to find out that it was filmed with one camera and 5 used lenses that were damaged. I mean, that's kind of badass. Also interesting to note that apparently there was a eco agenda to the script. They were writing as if there was a oil crisis, and in Mad Max the currency is fuel, petrol. I mean, that's all that matters is gas,
Yes.
baby, gas.
Yes, correct. That's all that matters.
Yeah. Apparently,
but, one day it'll be water. That you could make one out of water. I
right,
suppose.
right.
They probably already have. I don't know. I don't watch movies.
I don't really care that there's like a greenie agenda at play, because like it was the 70s and whatever, like I get it. Like there are concerns about the planet, the whole whatever oil crisis thing obviously probably was not based on any real shortage, just geopolitics. But the fact that this movie was written during the crisis in the 70s, the oil crisis, makes perfect sense, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember actually my parents having discussions about something to do with what day it was that you could go and buy fuel, and it was according to the number plates, odd days and even days.
Yeah, it was that way here too.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I think is a really interesting point to be brought up, because I knew that happened here, but I didn't realize that it was in Australia. So it's almost like globalization, early on, like a trial, right? Because we're doing the same thing, the same restrictions in a couple of different places, and let's see if they buy it. Let's see how it plays out. That was interesting. I just didn't realize they did that there, Stella.
I'm just wondering, actually, and Rob's probably wondering the same thing if he happens to be listening. Shout out, Rob, whether that might have been 1973.
Good question.
So,
The oil crisis, you mean?
yeah, because I'm just trying to remember when Kissinger sort of did I think that was 73 when the petrodollar, it sort of became, the economy was based on the petrodollar rather than the gold.
They'd just
back.
gone off the gold standard, and
Yeah.
the Club of Rome had just announced the climate agenda.
Yeah, and Kissinger was the one that went and sort of, kissed the Arab.
So it was 73. It said in October of 73 was kind of when things were going down.
73. What do you know?
Yeah.
So
What do you know?
apparently Bear Snare has never watched Mad Max.
Oh,
Has,
Bear.
has
Guilty.
everyone else? Has everyone else?
I'm seeing these clips and thinking I really should.
You must.
really should, man. You really
The original.
It's a fantastic movie.
Yeah, I mean, I saw the previews for the new one and didn't realize it was based on something that looks fun.
Mhm. Yeah, well, as usual, they get further and further from the original. I
Yeah,
will
the
say,
first one and the second one, definitely worth it. Just like any band. The first and second album is really good.
Right.
But yeah, no, sort of when it started becoming big, well, when the Americans
budget.
started taking over, basically. Sorry, but and it started, you know, Tina Turner, the big names, all that sort of stuff.
Right.
It's like it just went shifting from the essence to the entertainment, you know, the Hollywood sort of. I mean, of
kept-
course, it was entertainment. You know what I mean?
It kept getting more and more exaggerated.
Yeah, and more manufactured and plasticized.
In a way, though, I've enjoyed all of them. With I would say less and less seriousness as they've come out.
Yeah.
Because, you know, in a way, like the universe itself keeps devolving. So like the fact that the movies get less serious makes sense. And there is an element of cartoonishness and exaggeration even in the original. So I do appreciate that the universe itself, you have a lot of free play. So like I enjoyed every Mad Max movie, and I'll probably enjoy the next one. But I won't take it quite as seriously as art as the first.
I still think part 2 was the best.
Yeah, Road Warrior.
Yeah.
Huh.
I think
Yeah.
it's when he came into his character, but it was the same way with Evil Dead, and I like part 2 the best on Evil Dead, which was pretty much a remake of Evil Dead 1, but he came into his character, and that's, you know, it's like, what are we going to make this guy about, you know? But yeah, Mad Max 2.
Learning that Mel Gibson, this was his break, makes it more interesting to me too.
Yeah, well, the madness has been there from the beginning. And is it justified madness? This is a good question.
Are you calling Mel Gibson mad?
Yes, he's always been mad. Yeah.
Most artists have a little stroke of madness, or else they wouldn't be such great artists.
Yeah.
There's a podcast. It's called the Easy Peasy Podcast, and he did a real deep dive on Mel
Mel.
Gibson.
I did.
It was about a year ago.
that
Y'all
guy.
should check it out. Yeah.
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 Yeah, if you haven't listened to his voicemails, or it wasn't even voicemail, it was recorded phone calls with his wife at the time. Yeah, there's no question. There's an element
His
of
daughter.
madness. No, it was not his daughter. It was about
Wait.
his daughter, but it was with
Ah.
his wife. No, he is
Right,
is certainly not a calm individual. I'm not going to say he's crazy, but he is mad. And there might be a slight difference.
I'm still
It's
going
still learning
based.
Miller.
Based or bogus? The question
Super based.
remains.
Well, and
There was
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Ashley.
I was just gonna say, I think an important point about that is like it's hard to tell if people like where are you that is causing that reaction, right? Because when people are frustrated, they are like either angry, violent. So what was going on in his life or in his relationship with that person that got him there, right? Because maybe it's just hard to say. It's hard to say because maybe that person was impossible to deal with. Maybe his wife was. I have no clue.
Hey, if someone wants to pull up a snippet or a clip of that phone call, we could play it here in a bit. Just to give you, like, we don't need to play the whole thing, but to give you a taste of Mel's madness.
Are they on YouTube?
Yeah, certainly. If you search like Mel Gibson phone call wife or ex-wife.
Okay.
Oh, that's mean. Let's not point that out. He's
Well,
just
no,
a human.
actually, I pointed to it in my deep dive episode that no,
Yeah.
you're right, Ashley. We don't know the full context. This woman was possibly a manipulator, which is essentially what he was accusing
I
her
remember
of.
that woman. Oh my gosh, that was the
Yeah.
Russian woman, I think. Yeah.
Russian dancer or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh
Oksana.
man. Yeah, Oksana. That's right. Yep. I knew it sounded like a pimple cream.
But you know,
But this would have
again,
been
madness is not necessarily insanity. You know, I don't know. I think maybe that's the question at hand.
and this would have been his second wife. So he was with his first wife for a very long time. And they had a lot of children. And then after that, he was with this gal.
Yeah.
I think they've
And
got
they
6 kids or something. didn't they? And he lost. Didn't he lose one of his kids? It's all too vague. I might be mixing him up with Mr. Travolta.
Might be. All right, let me play this on for a few minutes, and we'll come back.
Was inexperienced in front of the camera as well. Gibson had done some plays. Hugh Keays-Byrne was more established but mostly a stage actor. And a lot of Toe Cutter's followers were from actual biker gangs. Paid in beer and bonding with Keays-Byrne on a massive motorcycle road trip that got the bikes to set before filming began. In my eyes, the rawness is obvious on screen, but it makes the film one of a kind. The story of Mad Max is so simple that it's exploitation cinema to a T. An apocalyptic civilization breeds chaos. Broken down lawman goes on a revenge spree after the murder of his family. I think you could apply most of that description to about 500 different movies that were made over the decades. Both big budget studio jobs and indies shot in the director's backyard. What makes Mad Max different, and something that's still exciting to watch decades later, is that George Miller's voice, already so distinct in his first feature film, informs everything here. And for a movie that was renowned for its violence when it premiered, what makes Mad Max one of a kind is that its brutality is counterbalanced by its cartoonishness. First, the brutality. Mad Max exists in a world set a few years from now, where society has broken down due to oil shortages, with desperate civilians running scared from the wild gangs that have taken over the road. Miller thrusts us into this mid-apocalyptic conflict at the very start, with a chase between the main force patrol and the criminal known as the Knight Rider. The ways in which both cop and criminal care little for their lives or the lives of anyone else illustrate how this will be a story where lives are cheap, and the thrill of the chase is more important than finding justice. And while we're quickly introduced to our cast of characters, it's MFP Officer Goose, played by Steve Bisley, and Max, who seem like the only ones truly capable of matching the speed and ferocity of the gangs. With Hugh Keays-Byrne's Toe Cutter swearing revenge on Max and the MFP for Knight Rider's death. Mad Max's opening chase is all about picking up as much speed as possible, and the shreds of metal and plastic that fly off every car add to the sense of danger and very real impact of every hit. The film immediately contrasts this with Max's quiet, happy home life, with Gibson's Max and Joanne Samuel's Jesse having an easy, calm sort of chemistry that's at direct odds with the rest of the film's manic state. And despite its rawness, Mad Max holds back on so much of its potential graphic violence. Instead, Miller chooses to suggest the worst of the worst, instead of actually showing it. And I think that given what were probably real budget limitations on how effective its blood and gore could actually be, Mad Max is stronger for implying its horrors instead of showing them, because it allows for the imagination to run wild. Instead, we see the reactions of those who witness carnage. And since this is ultimately a movie about mental breakdown that mirrors societal breakdown, the toll seen on Max's mind is what matters most. The two best examples of this are in Max visiting the horribly burned Goose in the hospital, where the colors and lighting shift the most dramatically in the entire film, leading to a fever dream with Max popping right up into a shaft of light to accentuate his internal torment. The other
Pausing. I really liked how this fella phrased. Also, I know it sounds halfway like, oh, is that AI? I think this is a real guy. I kind of looked into the channel, but he phrased it as mental breakdown, paralleling or following societal breakdown, right? Which is what we're discussing, right? Madness. Any thoughts?
I mean, I do. I don't know if it's necessarily related specifically to this, but back in the day on the Prop Report, Monica would talk about the whole mental health, how it was becoming a thing, right? So like there was this push to be like, oh, let's make it okay to talk about our mental health. We've got to be okay with talking about our mental health. But meanwhile, there's all of these different elements that is stoking absolute madness, if you will, in our society. And even the idea of mental health, and when people are like, a lot of the influencers or people that you see online that are saying that they think mental health is important, but they're crazy. They're coming across as very mentally ill. So I definitely think that there is an element of intentionally created madness, mental illness, pushing people to the brink.
Well, and I think we used to just kind of figure you're either okay or you've gone mad. You know, it was a little simpler. There's no,
Yeah.
you know, you're depressed or anxious or whatever, you know.
I think what Ashley just described is kind of terrorism, but low level terrorism or subtle terrorism, like to get you to feel that way the whole time. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like creating an environment where, and Stella said this, they don't want you to be able to relax. So an environment of like cortisol poisoning, basically, of being in this fight, flight, freeze mode of life. And because we have reached this level of, high quality of life, then you're not worried about survival. If you're focusing on survival and making ends meet and making sure that you have enough food, you don't have time to worry about all of these ancillary issues that bother a regular person today.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of these people probably have never walked through a third world country or spent any time probably out of their own freaking neighborhood or state, or at least out of their, demographic. They should go and spend some time in, I don't know, find themselves in India or something. I don't know.
It is
Egypt was an
funny.
eye-opener for me, there's different ways that people live, and it is an eye-opener. Everybody should travel at least once to a place like that, and you come back different.
It's kind of funny how you see people in a fancy car with a chai mocha latte talking about mental health. Yeah.
Like they'd know.
I don't, and not to say that they don't have problems, and there are certainly mental issues that come from living a life of convenience. So like maybe they should be talking about mental health, but when you phrase it in that way, like you just said, Stella, walk in someone else's shoes, while you sit in your BMW and record your TikTok, like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
boot camp is really as simple as buying an airplane ticket to a third world country and go and open your eyes for a little while. Come back wiser and value your stuff more, or value it less, even better.
Right.
I still have to really do that. I've been to Mexico, and that's like the most third world country I've been to.
May I recommend Jamaica?
Yeah, I was thinking that, Ashley. Like, how is that as far as third worlding?
It seemed pretty third world to me.
Yeah, that's what I've
Once you
heard.
get off the resort so we were in Montego Bay, and once you get out of there, and it seems very third world. Like there are some homes that seem very nice, but like I said, there's like shacks upon shacks upon shacks, or shanties, Ando and I were talking about it. So I would say that absolutely you could glean some insight into what it's like to live in what I would consider impoverished conditions. Now, maybe they have enough food, because a lot of them seem to have their own ability. There was goats and cows and stuff like that people had, and the place that we stayed was sort of a village vibe. So perhaps it's not like desperately like starving, but it was poor.
Yeah.
Squalor.
Yes, it would definitely qualify. And I think we could probably get in a little bit of trouble even, not that I care, but for saying third world, because I think they're actually developing world.
Developing countries, yeah.
Developing countries.
That's some
Yes.
PC.
Wait, how are they
bull-
going to develop if all the people that are meant to enrich them are being sent over, or meant to enrich us, or being sent over to enrich us? How are they going to develop?
I was only
I don't
thinking
get
of
it.
our own future.
Oh, they'll probably have development forced onto them, just like they'll inflict peace. Ooh, someone will. Not mentioning any names. USA.
Well, I think that little idea might come back, Stella, about enforcing peace. Grandpa Gamer, who I'm going to bring up after this, he was a real soldier and a badass motherfucker at that, and is now destroying 12-year-olds on Xbox. But that's not. I'm teasing y'all with that. Grandpa Gamer's a funny one, but let's finish up with Mad Max. And I'm not going to play the whole thing, but there's some good shit in the next few minutes here. Go ahead.
Okay.
Stell. Yeah.
I'm not sure whether the movie Tim has been mentioned. Has it? I might have missed it because I get a bit distracted. Okay. So the movie Tim, if anyone wants to look that up, it's Mel Gibson. I think it might have been his very first film. So it was Mad Max sort of flung him into the spotlight, but his movie, he was very young when he did that. And it's about a young man and an older lady in this relationship sort of type strange situation. Anyway, just an interesting thing if you're a Mel Gibson curious person.
I think we all are. He's a curious cat.
Most people wouldn't know about that film because it was not very well known. I guess that would explain that.
All right, well, let's continue on the Mel Gibson train.
Other is the most tragic moment of the film, with Jesse and little Sprague run down by the motorcycle gang. It's horrible, but Miller uses only a shoe and a ball to illustrate the carnage. We're using the innate emotion of knowing what's happened. We don't need to actually see anything. Miller is a storyteller who uses big emotions, operatic themes. But while the toll of death is a recurring element in his films, he's not cruel. Mad Max is far from perfect, and the shortcomings are felt most in the script not being completely confident in itself, with plot beats sometimes taking multiple attempts before moving the story forward. Like Goose getting in a motorcycle crash, being fine, getting another car, and then being attacked by the toe cutter. Or Jesse having a run-in with the gang, escaping, thinking they're chasing after her, and then running into them again for the fatal rundown. It's perfectly choreographed or feature insane special effects, but because the reality of cars blazing down the open Australian road creates verisimilitude, with even greater danger created by the Kuleshov effect of intercutting innocent civilians and increasingly stressed drivers into the road carnage on display. Stuntman Grant Page executed most of the movie's stunts despite being hospitalized for a bike crash while traveling the set, and would go on to perform in The Road Warrior and Beyond Thunderdome, with Page saying, "The essence of stunts is to make it look as dangerous as possible, and make damn sure it's not." Obviously, the jump through the splintering caravan is a highlight, but the final chase with Max after Toe Cutter is fantastic, thanks to the viscerality of a stuntman on a bike just a few feet away from the blazing V8 Interceptor, one of my favorite movie cars. The goal, it seems, of the MFP is to chase down their targets until sheer speed and a simple mistake leads to a fatal crash. And Toe Cutter's death, complete with a prop head eye pop for added "did I just see that" surprise, is no different. Still, despite all those moments that are burned into the memories of Mad Max fans, shooting the film was an incredible challenge. In fact, the pressure Miller felt was so strong that he nearly stepped down as director before the cast and crew threatened to quit if he did. "The film was a complete disaster to me in terms of what I wanted to do," said Miller. "I really thought I wasn't cut out to make films. I had no money for an editor, so I cut the film myself for a year. And every day for a year, I was faced with the evidence of what I hadn't done, what I'd failed to do. Every day facing this film, this wreck." But when Mad Max was finally released in 1979 in Australia and around the world the following year, Miller's film was a sensation.
American International presents Mad Max, the maximum force of the future.
All of these elements would make Mad Max feel like a dire, desperate experience if it weren't for the outlandish, exaggerated touches that flavor everything in this film. Hugh Keays-Byrne makes Toe Cutter an absolutely flamboyant caricature, constantly zigging and zagging in his over-the-top reactions to everything. Side characters like Police Chief Fifi and the voice box using Charlie feel like Miller and McCausland satirizing the typical stock characters found in a movie police department.
Well, damn them! You and me, Max. We're gonna give them back to heroes.
Max and Julie are like the worst parents ever, but I think Miller is aware of that as an element of his story, and it's ultimately their neglecting of Sprague that destroys their lives. Little touches, like Brian May's saxophone score suddenly revealed to be Julie playing the sax off screen, are winks and nods to let us in on the joke.
Okay, I'm pausing there. I think I get whatever his name is, Miller, Dennis Miller, I think.
George Miller.
George Miller, thank you. I get him. Because as much as I hate to do it, I'm going to bring up my book. I wrote my book with a certain sense of irony. Like, there's so many cliches on purpose, like just to point out the cliches, if that makes any sense.
Yep.
And I think he was doing this similar kind of thing. It's over the top on purpose, but only this much.
What I really liked about this film, and probably it was sort of the end of the era of this before, special effects and everything really started coming to the forefront, was it was still the era of suggestion. It still gave some credit to the viewer to be intelligent enough to see the cues and know what's going on without it being spelt out in black and white and various acronyms and lots of other 140 characters. So that part I do really like, and I love the rawness of it. This is why I also brought up the other movie, Duel. Very similar feel, different directors, but very similar in the sense it was very raw, very, first of. Now, whether this was controlled or not, I don't know. Let's just put that in the basket for now. And, the tortured artist of George Miller, he wasn't, he expected more. It wasn't quite what he wanted. It wasn't quite good enough when he finished. So typical. But in the end, it was a roaring success. So excellent for him. The character Toe Cutter. Let me just, while I think of it too, just suggest another film which along these lines, very much so. Anyone who enjoys Mad Max will also enjoy a movie called Stone. And I think Toe Cutter was also the character, whatever his name was, I can't quite remember. I think he might have been in Stone as well.
Stella, are these all Ozploitation films?
Yeah.
Apparently.
I think
Apparently, this is the ones that started it off, perhaps.
Because of Stella and Drew's involvement in this podcast, I would call it an Ozploitation podcast.
It is. I want some compensation, please. Send me a few $1 billion. Thank you.
Yeah. Well,
Hey,
talk to the listeners about that.
Print me some dollars.
I connected with his thing about editing for a year and seeing all the things that he'd failed to do and all the things that he did badly and stuff like that. Like the way I make music, that is so much how I do it too. Like I feel that.
Totally.
Dude, it's why it's actually, I think, the only way to make art. It's like there's no such thing as perfection. You got to just get it out there. And like, I mean, you don't want to rush it. You don't want to short sell it. But like, part of what was fun about writing my book was like, I can't afford an editor. So like, I'll just do it myself. And like, I know there's going to be some typos and some grammatical incorrect, whatever bullshit, but I don't give a fuck. I mean, I do, but I don't, right? When I read it, I'm like, oh, there's a typo. Oh shit, there's a typo. But like, big whoop. Who cares?
Nobody died.
Nobody died.
Hey, on that preview we were just looking at 9:40. I don't know if you want to go back, but you car enthusiasts, there was the famous Holden Sandman van. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. So 9:40, around about 9:41 maybe. The Holden Sandman, and it was like, if the Sandman rocking, don't come a knocking. So it was the drive-in vehicle. It was like the car your mama is never going to want your boyfriend to pull up in, that type of thing. But, oh man, they were such good vehicles. So yeah, like everyone and his dog had a Sandman back then. And there was usually some incredible art, that really amazing airbrush type art. You remember that from the, well, probably don't, 70s, late 70s vehicles and stuff.
Totally.
Oh, 80s actually, probably more 80s really. Yeah, you guys got that?
Yeah.
The
I
Rodney
remember,
Matthews type art and that sort of stuff. Yeah.
I remember well.
I had an Econoline. We call vans that look like that. We call them Rap Evans.
Rap Evans. Why is that?
Yeah, I've never heard that.
Write
Who's
the word
Evans?
down and without a space bar.
Oh, okay. Yes, got it.
Raper. Oh, I see. Yeah,
Rape
okay.
vans.
Okay, I got you. All right. Well, let's
I
carry
said it
on.
so we could get cancelled. Sorry about that. So you trying to be all subtle and stuff?
Thought I saw one of them
He's speeding up the footage of their
today
chases.
from the school.
This allows.
Whoops.
It's your caddy,
Sorry.
isn't it?
Sorry, y'all. Are we good? Are we ready?
Go ahead.
Here. Okay.
Ryan May's saxophone score suddenly revealed to be Julie playing the sax off screen are winks and nods to let us in on the joke. And of course, there's Miller and cinematographer David Egby speeding up the footage of their chases. This allows the stunt drivers to perform at safer speeds, but it also gives the chases an unnatural quality of movement that feels like a Looney Tune come to life. Because everything is heightened, we can enjoy the carnage just a little more, until Max's life comes crashing down as his infant son is killed and his wife lies near death. It's here that the cartoonishness, at least somewhat present throughout every scene before, is stripped away, and Max kills each gang member in a life and body sacrificing path of revenge. With Gibson putting in a feral, almost completely mute performance for the climax of the film. Mad Max is about getting pushed past the point of breaking. That point is different for every character, and for the world they're in. Highway lines are the recurring visual motif of the film, with long shots skimming right above the blacktop as our characters blaze their way across the wilderness. Sometimes these shots are more gentle, pushing along in peace. At other times, the dashed lines shoot across the screen, as both the camera operator and characters chase their targets in the seconds before death. In either case, it's a hypnotic effect, and Max is consumed by a hypnotic, vengeful state. So much of Mad Max feels like it's just barely keeping the illusion of its world together, with the film crew often shooting at very specific angles to capture barren nature, and not the houses and businesses that were just a few feet away. But the scrappiness of this production would give way to an expansion and reiteration of its ideas, as budgets and skills grew in sequels. The closest other series I can think of is Sam Raimi's Evil Dead trilogy, which has a very similar progression in films, moving from micro-budget production that found unexpected success to a sequel where the essence of the original became both honed and extremely exaggerated, to a third film where the franchise went in a completely different direction and employed a medieval aesthetic. Major shifts, but still under the same guiding voices. And that was possible because Mad Max would go on to make $100 million worldwide, for a time becoming the most profitable film ever made, even if its US release was compromised by terrible dubbing that tried to remove the Aussiness of it all.
You okay, Goose? Nothing here in the tropics wouldn't fix.
With 3 more Mad Max films made after the original and a Furiosa prequel on the way, Miller's small-scale revenge thriller has given life to a vibrant world that's evolved into a mythological tale, where each film acts like a new cycle of Ragnarok. And
Okay, that's about enough. I like the Mad Max universe because the rules are unwritten, more or less. I don't know. Every movie is different, but similar.
I kind of like the idea that rules should be unwritten, and once you write them down, maybe you're starting to lose the plot.
Can I ask why it is that it's necessary to replace the Aussie dialect with the American dialect? Is that because you don't understand what the fuck we're saying, or what?
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, sometimes, hey, honestly, hey, Bear, don't talk till you've watched Mad Max. Because
am I
sometimes
going to not understand it?
you might want subtitles. That's all I'm saying, bro.
I mean, I like subtitles anyway.
Wait, did you say that it was dubbed though? Did they dub it?
They did a
dubbed
dubbed
it
version.
into American.
Yeah.
Yeah, that seems pretty ridiculous.
Yeah.
We don't speak another language,
Is
bro.
it?
Was this before what's his name, the crocodile hunter?
Yeah, Steve Irwin.
Yeah.
Paul Hogan or Steve Irwin? Paul Hogan.
Steve Irwin.
Right. Not sure who came first. Yeah, no, it's funny to see it in American.
Howdy do. We're in Australia.
I mean, I'm pretty sure if I watch Deliverance, I might not understand what they're saying either. And
No,
they're only
totally.
like a few hundred miles from me.
Unless you just drop them pants.
No, it's
Thanks,
take take them panties off. That's what he said.
Totally
That's
makes
right.
me want to watch it.
You've never seen Deliverance, bruh?
I've seen our episode of it, and that's it.
God damn. God damn. You got to watch Mad Max and Deliverance.
Apparently, and Escape from
And
New
Stone.
York City. And Tim.
Oh, and Evil Dead, which was brought up in.
Well,
in
I've
this
seen Evil Dead
as well. Yeah. Well, just watch it again.
And Stone and Wolf Creek is another one. Wolf Creek, that's another Australian. That's actually much later, but it's pretty freaky. And the funny thing is that the guy that plays the main character, John Jarrett is his name, and the actor, he started out in a thing called Play School, which is like these kids, playing with puppets and stuff, basically sort of like a Sesame Street, I suppose, an Australian version, but it's like, oh, look, children, which window are we going to look through today? We'll look through the magic mirror and all that sort of thing, So he started out like that, and then he ends up playing this psychopathic murdering killer in the middle of Australia. And actually, when he was playing that role for the movie, people around him, like in his life, got really freaked out. And there was some charges laid and all sorts of things. It was like he became that character in his real life. And his wife, I'm not sure if his wife, if it ended because of that or just before that, but it was like, yeah, he started bringing the character into his real life, and that was quite freaky. And another little bit of Hollywood gossip, I feel like TMZ. In Mad Max, there was the guy that in the little helicopter-y, gyroscopy type vehicle, if anybody knows that. Yeah, he had some pedophile charges later. Like, he got mixed up in this whole ring of pedophilia and stuff, accused anyway, allegedly. Well after that film, but yeah. Never saw him since all those accusations that killed his career. So whether it was true or not, who knows?
I feel like that thing of getting really wrapped up in the role that you're playing is common. And I mean, I can see that. Like, I've played roles back when I was in school, playing parts for a play. It's easy to get wrapped up in it. You're practicing the lines, and you're practicing the character. Like, it's kind of what you want to do in order to act the part, right? And,
there is a term for that. I can't
and
quite remember what it is.
Maybe that's one of the things that makes us go mad, is playing a part.
Yeah.
You guys are going to fucking love Grandpa. I'm just saying. Grandpa Gaming. I only just discovered this guy.
Coming out my eyes. Guy said, yeah, I'll play 2042, but if I see Grandpa Gaming in the lobby, I'm leaving. I thought that was hilarious. Oh. Show me some skin. This guy up here.
He has lots of videos on YouTube too.
I told you. Wow.
No way.
Yeah.
Hey, look in chat.
Show me some more. Show me some more. Thank you.
The audio listeners.
I do it for the enjoyment and
Stella?
I was just gonna fill in what was happening for the
Yeah.
people listening
Yeah.
in audio. It's just an old bloke basically playing video games like a sniper and doing pretty well.
Doing very, very well. Yeah.
Because I like to entertain people. And 2 is I've found that it takes my mind off the pain. If I sit in this chair for more than 20 minutes at a time, everything from the shoulders down to the fingertips goes numb, like right now. They're very numb. Playing a game, especially a first-person shooter, I'm constantly looking down on the keyboard to make sure my fingers are in the right position. And sometimes when I get into the game, my fingers will slip off and be someplace else where they shouldn't be. And that's where the problem comes in. I'll die.
Wait,
Actually,
what's he
late
talking about?
2009, I was.
He plays on a computer. He's playing PC.
No.
What do you mean?
Talking about where my fingers go where they probably shouldn't be.
Oh, come on. All right. Yeah. Good one, Ando.
Was working for Charter as a dispatcher too, and had an office chair incident where the office chair malfunctioned, shot me under the desk, and sort of hung me and ruptured 3 vertebrae in my neck. I got a high tolerance for pain, but right now the pain's mild.
What was that happened
But
to him?
once I do start doing that,
Yeah, it's weird. Like an office chair, like basically collapsed on him and like fucked his neck up.
He survived Vietnam only to be accosted
Yeah,
by an office chair.
Yeah, pretty much.
Fucking
Okay.
boomers.
Okay.
this and get into the focused on the game, then the pain just sort of fades away. And then after I end, it comes on with a vengeance. I actually got into a game called Arcade with one of my very first mod. And he said, "What kind of system do you have?" And then I told him it's my custom build I built myself. He goes, "Well, you should try streaming." I said, "What is that?" He goes, "With Twitch." And I go, "What is that?" And he told me, and the next night we came on, and for an hour and a half, he helped me set up streaming, and I never looked back.
Eat that, bitch. One more, Grandpa. Grandpa got them all. Yes. Hey, that was a no scope with a triple take. Yeah, let's go.
That's a.
Whew. And I had 2 rounds of energy left. Oh my God.
Oh, my favorite game of all time. It's a Wing Commander Series Forerunner called Privateer. And it's a space-oriented first-person shooter, exploration, mining, and shortly after that came out, then Wing Commander Series came out. But that's my all-time favorite, Privateer. My granddad was a World War II fighter ace, flew P-51s.
Oh, nice.
The squadron he was in was called Bulldogs, and he flew a P-51 with the name on the side, down for double, and 16 and a half kills.
He downed 16 planes.
16 and a half.
So he's a
here's the
so
question.
he's a triple ace.
How do you get a half a kill? And I have to explain this.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't understand the half.
Every time I say that, a half a kill is when 2 pilots shoot at the same plane and both get hits and that plane goes down. Each pilot gets credit for half a kill.
Oh, that makes sense.
I did not know that.
Yes.
I've never heard that ever.
Grandpa helps spit roast a Nazi.
All right. I didn't do the best job of like clipping that, but my bad. Grandpa Gaming, basically, he comes from a line of military men. They've all served him, his dad, his granddad, and now he's just annihilating people on internet video games, and I kind of like it as a story. He's actually a really funny cat. I listened to like a 2-hour interview with him, but I don't know, man. Like he's a guy who did like rescue diving in Vietnam and shit, and like saw some pretty rough shit. I find the gaming thing as a way of numbing the pain. I don't know, like, is that addiction? Is that a way to stave off the madness or embrace the madness? Or I don't know, maybe it doesn't connect quite, but
seems like he's earned his seat in the computer chair that's extremely dangerous.
Well, I think he buys nice chairs now.
It's a very
Oh,
good
that's a good
question,
idea.
though. Like it's an interesting thing to ponder, because it is the kind of thing, gaming in general is the kind of thing that tends to be more of an addiction that people just waste a ton of time on.
Yeah, but there's hundreds of those things.
But he seems to be making a successful channel out of it and everything. So
Well,
if it's
he-
productive for him, then
He
kudos.
started streaming like before that was even big. Like he's been streaming himself playing video games for years.
Wow.
And he's kind of gone viral. People know Grandpa and they don't want to play with him because he's too fucking deadly, and it's because he actually is a sharpshooter. He knows ballistics, and like, there's a whole lot to that shit. It's not just Pong,
Yep, compensating for the curvature of the Earth. Oh, sorry. Did I upset someone?
No, well, not me.
It is part of their mathematics.
Yep.
Well, no, I noticed that he was aiming right above the guy that he hit.
Yes.
Just about a quarter inch above. Yeah.
Yep.
I noticed that on some of the shots too, that he was aiming well above them on the further off ones. Like there was the one with the big balcony against the sky there. Yeah.
Yeah, you'd have to know the weight of your bullet versus the distance versus. It's very much a science, isn't it? It's amazingly complex
Yeah.
science.
Yeah.
A little bit of instinct too, I think.
Yeah.
I like to spray and pray.
That's my video game approach too, because I've certainly never achieved that level of precision in any video games that I've played.
Well, y'all should have seen me and Jared today. We pretty much sprayed.
You do a mag dump into trash?
We actually did, brother. It was so
Nice.
funny. It was so funny
Feels
because
good.
his target was literally a garbage can that we were pasting targets to. And for about an hour, we were actually like just shooting carefully and aiming and getting some reps. And it took him a while to get his shit sighted in and shit. So we did that. But after we were all done kind of doing the, whatever, the serious shit, I go, "You want a mag dump?" He's like, "Yeah." And it's a garbage can. There was no trash in it, but technically it was a garbage can. So yeah, we mag dumped. Yeah.
Did you feel like a cop when you did it?
No, I felt like,
Oh, you actually hit it.
Yeah. No, I probably was only shooting one per second because I actually wanted to hit what I was pointing at. It wasn't stupid mag dump. It was just, let's shoot them all. Let's do it. It was fun. Mag dump into trash. It's good for your mental health.
Yeah, it would be letting loose. It's a bit like screaming into a pillow or, going for a drive in your car and singing at the top of your lungs. I love doing that.
I did. I used to work at a place that I was constantly frustrated, and so I did employee scream therapy at lunchtime. I don't think it helped me very much, but I did do it like every day.
Well,
You'd be
it
surprised.
must have helped her. You would have stopped.
You're still here.
No, I mean, the job though, like that situation did not last long. It was not good.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
but my scream therapy was not as therapeutic as I would have hoped in that regard.
Well,
Fair.
maybe it was though, because if you'd screamed at another person and they punched you in the face, that would have been a lot less therapeutic.
True story.
Yeah. Madness, man. I don't know what else to say about it except that it's out there and we should maybe understand it. Like I said, is it the same as crazy? I don't think so. People get mad, man.
Some of it's justified. There's a lot of reasons to be mad.
Yeah.
Sometimes madness is the way you stay sane. Ish. Speaking of madness, I had my very first session chatting with AI about a few days ago. I finally caved. I just thought it would be fun. I just sort of put the Brave browser finally on all my stuff instead of just one thing, and I'm using that primarily. So, yeah. Oh God, I've had a total blank. What was I saying? The Brave
You
browser.
talked to AI and did it
AI,
suck or
thank
not
you very
suck?
much.
Yeah.
See, some microwaves just sucked the knowledge out. Didn't want me to say it. So anyway, Brave has this AI attached to it called Leo. Yeah, you guys know about that? It's a bit like Bing's got one, and I think they've all sort of got one, apparently. So I was chatting with Leo about a few little things, mainly about a little bit about the vaccinations and mandates and things like that. And it was only sort of 3 conversations. Every time it ended up apologizing to me because it got something wrong. In the third one, it was like, thank you for correcting that. I'll go and revise my blah, blah, blah. It's like, what the fuck use is this? Anyway, long story short, in the end, I realized after I asked it about what happened, please, what was it? Something like, please expand on the flooding event in Dubai in April 2024. I wanted to hear what was the rhetoric. And it said, there has been no flooding event in Dubai. And I said, yes, there has, actually. And, we had a bit of a banter back and forth. It's like, there fucking has.
A lot of these things are about a year behind in news and stuff.
Hey.
So,
Oi,
yeah, I mean, they are. They are.
All right. Yep, they are.
I think we're meant to think that they suck because they're going to use them for shit later. And we're like, I didn't expect this thing to be that good, but it fucked you up. So
Leo doesn't, its data and any sort of reach runs out in November 2021. So it's useless, basically. Because not only does it not know a whole bunch of stuff, it's spreading disinformation because it said there was no flooding event in the UAE or in Dubai. And it's like, well, yeah, there was. That's misinformation. Where's the censors? Where's the fact checkers?
I think it's pathetic. It's this whole AI thing is such a facade. Like, it's such a charade. It's so fake. The whole Amazon, they were going to have these local stores where you could walk in and you'd have your digital ID and walk out with whatever you wanted, whatever you picked up, and it would just automatically charge you. And it turned out there was 1,500 Indians like trying to keep track of what everyone picked up and put down. Like, really? Like, so much of it is so fake. It's hilarious. And you just brought up a perfect example of that, like it has no idea what's going on.
No. They're just the toys they give us. The redundant
the stuff that they let us have is old tools for them, they're old toys. So the shit that they're dealing with is up to date for sure. And they have Aladdin like shit that's even more intense than that. We talked about Aladdin a few months ago.
Yeah, that Aladdin program is that is pretty interesting.
Oh yeah.
That's a whole thing.
That started 1985 or something, didn't it?
That's BlackRock, basically, right?
Yeah. A lot about it.
BlackRock, Vanguard, etc. Yeah. Oh, we know about it. We talked about it, but Yeah. Or I don't even think I was on that episode, but it was talked about for sure.
Little Tommy Kitten.
Cat attack.
Tommy the Toppler. Yeah.
I see a tail. I see a tail.
I thought I put it at.
I thought I did. I seen a putty cat.
I did tell Birdie that.
Yeah, man. It's a mad, mad world. I don't know. I have no advice for anyone as usual, but welcome to it. Mad Max. You know, my bike won a major award, so
Is that a full circle segue?
Kinda. Anybody else, got anything you want to share or say? I am tapped.
Let's go then.
All right. Well, as usual, Mike the Polymath, Easy Peasy Podcast. Just a word to the wise. If you're watching that Fallout series on Netflix, or you're watching like The Last of Us or like some bullshit, just remember like the grass is green and you should go walk on it and go to Childerberg if you can. That's always a good start. And I'll pass it to Stella Q.
Just go smell the flowers, man. It's beautiful.
Don't eat the brown acid.
Don't
Man
eat the
plants the
yellow
seed.
snow.
Man plants the seed. Nature grows the seed. And man eats the seed. It's beautiful. All right. Well, it's been fun. Good to see you guys. And take care, everyone. Thanks for listening. Thanks for partaking. You'll find me here. Or in the corner with my crayons. Ashley.
I'll be with Stella in the corner.
Always welcome. My corner is open to all. Bring your own crayons.
Make sure they're ecologically friendly.
Always.
Ando.
Oh, yeah, you can find me at the Doom Kitchen or libertylinks.io/the Doom Kitchen. Yeah, that's how you find it. But go to Childerberg, motherfuckers. I want to see y'all. And what's up, Bear Snare? You need to come to Childerberg.
Man, I would love to go to Childerberg. And also, I just want to say, with all this, what makes people go crazy and stuff, don't live in fear. Maybe fear is what makes us go crazy, Just live your life and be a good person. Start there. Do no harm. All that shit.
The only
Love you
thing to
guys.
fear is fear itself.
It's been fun.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But like, build yourself a badass Mad Max motorcycle and get all dressed up with some friends, because trust me, it's like a really good time.
Yeah, have fun.
Yeah, have a little fun. Pretend. Play. Get out and play, y'all.
Yeah.
You want to play? Let's go play. I love your guts, Stella.
Love your guts.
Love your guts. I love hearing these at 1x.
Hell yeah. 1x all day, baby.
2x in post.